What? Her head was touched by a large hand. Chin Fan laughed and sighed. You clearly have a weak chicken face. Why is your personality so headstrong? Si Rong was surprised by his smiling face. The man's looks were actually quite heaven-defying, and there were very few Easterners who had eyes as deep as his. His looks weren't exquisite, but he made sense in every way. He couldn't be ignored or even looked at directly. His sharp lines, honey-colored skin, and slightly curly black hair seemed to always be wild and unruly, but he did not look sloppy. Instead, it suited him, a wild sexiness. It was right for him not to smile normally. Otherwise, many women in this world would be sad again. Looking at this smiling face carefully, it was the real melting of the ice mountain. It satisfied people's sense of conquest of taming wild beasts. How many people could resist it? Si Rong thought to himself as he calmly brushed the large hand off his head and walked out of the cubicle. Chin Fan followed silently. He rubbed his fingers together and recalled the soft and smooth touch of her hair. This person, Chin Fan stared at Si Rong's back and suddenly had an idea. He remembered what the boy looked like, a big treasure. Treasure, once it was determined to be a treasure, it would be thought to be very beautiful. Every part of it was good and precious. Even touching it had to be careful, for fear that it would be broken and lost. This child was emitting the radiance of a treasure, attracting everyone's attention. Besides, wasn't he a treasure to her? Chin Fan thought to himself that meeting her again made him certain that when this child was around, his manic illness would not erupt, and his spirit had never been better. Weak chicken. There was no response. The corners of Chin Fan's mouth curled up slightly. Si Rong. What's the matter, beast? Si Huang stomped his feet. The smile on his side profile was impeccable. Chin Fan's face turned fierce. Why are you not willing to join the army? Si Rong started walking again. There's no reason for that. Everything I'm doing right now is what I like to do. Chin Fan, if you don't need to give up your current profession, will you still be allowed to join the team for training? Si Rong was surprised that he would say something like that, but he kept a straight face. I'll consider it. Chin Fan, on the other hand, thought, he really is a brat who doesn't know how to be polite. However, unexpectedly, it was to his liking. The meal was rather enjoyable, and Si Rong and Granny Yu's intimacy increased rapidly. Granny Yu even ignored Elder Tai's opinion and insisted on acknowledging Si Rong as her godgrandson. Grandma, Si Rong replied naturally. It made Grandma Yu's heart burst with joy. Having lived for so long, she believed that she was good at judging people. She was also surprised that she could develop such a strong affection for a person so quickly. Many of the factors were intentional, but it could not be ignored that she really liked this child. All right, little phoenix. Grandma Yu held Si Rong's hand affectionately and looked in Chin Fan's direction. This is little Qilin. Don't be fooled by his fierce appearance. He has a good temper and is especially loyal to his children. This is my only grandson. If you dare to bully him, see if I don't tell on you to Shang Zhen. We'll all deal with you together. Si Rong turned his head and met Chin Fan's eyes. He suddenly recalled that he had been handpicked by the Qin clan in his previous life, as well as what Wu Bao had said. A trace of understanding rose in his heart. She must have received a lot of Qin Fan's good fortune to be able to hug a big Buddha like Grandma Yu. Si Rong's mouth twitched silently and he revealed a faint smile to Qin Fan. He wasn't overly close to Qin Fan, but he wasn't rude either. Little Qilin, please guide me in the future. Qin Fan stood up and stretched out his hand towards her. I will protect you like a baby. Si Rong shook his hand. Thank you, little Qilin. You can call me Big Brother. Brother little Qilin. Qin Fan was speechless. What if he wanted to rub the child's head again? Si Rong felt that he had won this round. He looked at the time and said that he should take his leave. Granny Yu wanted to invite her to continue spending the afternoon, but Si Rong rejected her helplessly. Even though I don't have any scenes in the afternoon, I still want to observe the techniques of the seniors. Besides, I still have to make up for the lessons, so I can't fall behind in my studies. Grandma Yu looked at her in surprise. This child was too good. Her acting skills were so good, but she was not arrogant at all. Her love for Si Rong grew even more, and she didn't try to keep her any longer. Instead, she wrapped her hands around hers and pressed them down. She didn't say anything, but it was more touching than if she had said anything. Si Rong smiled at her, then called the waiter over to order a few dishes. At the same time, he handed her his card and said, I'm taking these away, pack them up. What's wrong with the little phoenix not eating his fill? Grandma Yu asked in surprise. Or do you like to take it back for dinner? You don't have to pay for it yourself. Si Rong's comforting smile cut her off. This is for Sister Guan. She helped me out a little, so Grandma, let me pay for it myself. You can't possibly not give me a chance to express my gratitude to those who have helped me, right? Grandma Yu couldn't refute her and could only let her do as she pleased. However, she also remembered that Si Rong was an attentive and gentle child who knew how to repay kindness. She also took note of how Guan Li had helped Si Rong. What kind of trouble had Si Rong encountered before? The waiter was very fast. He packed an exquisite box and handed the card to Si Rong. Si Huang originally wanted to leave by himself, but he was helpless that he didn't drive. Qin Fan took the initiative and said, I'll send you. Grandma Yu and the others were happy to see this. Si Rong also felt that it was convenient, so he agreed. The scenery outside the window passed by unhurriedly. Si Rong turned his head to look at it, and his mind wandered to another place. Thinking back to the time he spent with Qin Fan these 2 days, it was unexpectedly peaceful and harmonious. This was something that he would never have thought of in his previous life. What classes do you need? Qin Fan's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. I want to get into Jinghua University, Si Rong replied without moving. Then you have to work hard. You can't go to Beijing just because you know how to act. Si Rong couldn't be bothered to answer. Qin Fan thought that his words had hurt the boy's pride and said after a while, if there's anything you don't know, come and ask me. Si Rong finally turned his head and stared at Qin Fan with an unfathomable gaze. Have you always been so talkative? Qin Fan focused on driving and glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. There was no dissatisfaction in his eyes. Instead, there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. He said in a light tone, I like being with you. Si Rong was speechless. Feeling. Qin Fan happened to turn around and continued, I'll be in good spirits, and I'll feel comfortable. Si Rong could more or less confirm what Wu Bao had said before and ignored Qin Fan again. Your Majesty, do you believe me in the end? Si Rong's body trembled from the resentful tone that suddenly appeared in his mind. What's wrong? I'm fine, Si Rong replied. She tilted her head and continued to look out of the window, communicating with Wu Bao telepathically. You haven't come out because you're angry? She laughed as soon as she finished speaking. Wasn't this a child? Wu Bao was still resentful. His Majesty doesn't believe it and refuses to hook up with people, as long as your Majesty is willing. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill him if I don't like him? Si Rong said indifferently. Wu Bao was silent for a moment. Perhaps Si Rong really could do such a thing. He immediately flattered, aren't you getting along well with him now? Si Rong ignored her and asked, is my influence on him that obvious? Was it like this in my previous life? Wu Bao. Tisk, the previous emperor was definitely not as good as he is now. After his body has been strengthened, His Majesty has the same pure yin body as young Master Wuju. Before, his body still had impurities and was not pure. Si Rong narrowed his eyes. Will he really die if I don't get close to him? Wu Bao. You won't die immediately, but it must be very painful. You won't be able to sleep or eat well. Once the yang qi exceeds the body's endurance and goes crazy, you'll be better off dead. No matter how you listen to it, there's a lot of gloating in the end, right? Si Rong didn't say anything else. She was in a rather peculiar mood. Who would have thought that one day, someone's life would be linked to hers? It was a wonderful feeling. It was just that she wanted her to deliberately get close to Qin Fan because of this. She did not want to force herself to do so. Since they were getting along well now, she would continue to let nature take its course. Didn't he say so? It felt good when he was with her, and since it could be relieved when they were in the same range, that was enough. Your Majesty, such a piece of cake is clearly placed in front of you. How can you not eat it? Wu Bao once again felt resentful. Si Rong gave her a sidelong glance. Which eye of yours saw him as a sweet and adorable thing like a cake? The 5 treasure banner was speechless. Si Huang got off the car at the filming location and thanked her. He opened the door and was about to leave when a hand pulled her back. Pa Si Rong was stunned. Qin Fan looked at her for 2 seconds and reached out again, but he didn't pull her. Give me the phone. As the one in the wrong for throwing her face, Si Rong didn't have anything to say and took out his phone. Si Rong watched helplessly as Qin Fan used her phone to dial a number. set it to the shortcut key of 1, and even made a note to call brother. The corners of Sirong's mouth twitched slightly, but he swallowed the words in his throat. Chin Fan handed the phone back to her. Call me if you need anything, also. What? Sirong didn't look at his expression when he answered the call. Don't do bad things at night. Sirong's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He slowly raised his head, only leaving Chin Fan's side profile that was gradually hidden behind the car window. Then, he saw the car that was speeding away. Sirong came back and placed the takeaway on the table. Seeing that Guan Li's work was still ongoing, he waited at the side. Not long after, Yushi, who had received her message, also came down with a few books in his hands. They were the ones that Sirong wanted to study. You're just going to watch it here? Yexi put down the book and asked her. Sirong had already picked up the book that he had been studying on earlier. It's fine. Her learning ability was no longer the same as before, and her memory was much better than before. You already said you're fine, what else can I say? Oh right, I've also started a vlog, Yushi thought to himself. Yes, Sirong didn't look up. I want to mainly report your movements, Yushi replied. Hearing his cautious tone, Sirong raised his head and smiled. If you think it's good, you can do it. Yexi silently shifted his gaze away. This guy was not only a female assassin, but if he wanted to, no man could escape from his palm. After getting Sirong's approval, he quickly took out his phone and showed it to Sirong. He captured the scene of her sitting in the theater and studying. After looking at it from left to right, he felt that there was no need to edit the photos, so he posted the photos on Weibo with a hint of pride despite feeling disheartened. Yushi v. Photo, His Majesty has finished filming today and is currently having a tutoring session in the theater. He had rarely been in the online industry and spoke in a very serious tone. However, he was Sirong's manager and this plain photo of the Prince Charming was enough to attract countless girls to gather and lick their screens. Ah! Did her male god need to be so hot and handsome? She was really obedient today. Study hard and improve every day. Your Majesty, why do you have to work so hard for your studies? You just need to be as beautiful as a flower, and we'll earn money to support you. It can't be any better. Good job, little feather. You have to work hard to get a beautiful photo. I have faith in you, Mua Mua. Yushi, who had always been studying hard, had never had a girlfriend before. When he saw the XOXO, his ears heated up. He coughed lightly and put down his phone, pretending to be calm. The response was pretty good. Even though he didn't have a complete work yet, Sirong's popularity were still very high. It wasn't long before it was time for the crew to take a break and eat. And Ziyuan and Guan Li were also eating packed meals, but they were specially ordered by the hotel. The two of them walked over to Sirong in tacit understanding. And Ziyuan was the first to ask, "Why are you waiting here?" Guan Li was also looking at him. Sirong put down his book, stood up, and nodded at Anshin Yuan. Then he looked at Guan Li and smiled. I brought some vegetarian dishes from Shanggarden to make dinner for Sister Guan. You waited here just for this? Guan Li asked hesitantly. Sirong shook his head. I guessed that it's about time for Sister Guan to rest. Guan Li's face was cold, and the light in his eyes flickered. He said coldly, you don't have to please me. Sirong was stunned for a moment before he broke into laughter. Her smile made Guan Li feel awkward. He realized that he had misunderstood something. Everything that this young man with clean eyes had, he didn't need to please her at all, so why was he so stupid? Si Huang's smile was like a spring breeze, so bright that no one could resist it. He said generously, actually, this is to thank Sister Guan for speaking up for me before, that time on Weibo. Perhaps it's nothing to Sister Guan, but it's different for me. Guan Li shifted his eyes away. Even if I don't say anything, you will prove yourself. Si Huang smiled and said nothing. Guan Li's assistant glared at him again. Why did Guan Li seem to be blushing? Sirong, if I remember correctly, I helped you too, right? Why don't you thank me? And Ziyuan interjected evilly and placed his hand on Sirong's shoulder. Sirong dodged sideways, but acted as if nothing had happened. He glanced at Anshin Yuan's evil smile and said, I'm sorry, I don't know how to take pity on men. And Ziyuan's shoulders trembled. You've used the wrong words. Ah, I haven't gone to university yet. Anshin Yuan was speechless. Sirong blinked at Guan Li, who was pursing her lips and laughing. Then, under everyone's gaze, he said goodbye to Director Liu and returned to his hotel room. When they reached the door, Si Rong called out to Yushi, who was about to return to his room. "I'm going out tonight. Come to my room and help me hide it." Yexi was speechless. Her previous conclusion that Si Rong was reliable was shaken again. "When are you coming back?" Before 12 o'clock, Si Rong opened the door and entered. Seeing that Yushi had not followed her in, she stopped and turned around to look at him. Under her gaze, the Yexi persisted for 2 seconds before being defeated. It then walked into the room silently. Si Rong had changed into a low-profile gray outfit in the bathroom. He had a black baseball cap and a face mask that covered most of her face. Yushi was frightened by her appearance. "What are you trying to do?" Si Rong pulled down his mask and flashed him a harmless smile. "Let's go out for more food." Yushin's face was wooden. "As if I'd believe you." The truth was, he was utterly defeated by that harmless smile. Not only did he promise to guard the door for Si Rong, but he also promised not to tell anyone. Si Huang took a taxi back to Shang Garden, which was also the place where he had lunch with Granny Yu and the others. "Hello, I'm looking for Mr. Do Jun," Si Rong said coldly to the front desk. He had deliberately lowered his magnetic voice, but it was as piercing as an icicle. The lady at the front desk trembled and quickly glanced at Si Rong. She searched on the computer and asked 2 seconds later, "And you are?" "I'm Do Wenqing," Si Rong said. The front desk lady's expression changed and she immediately said, "Mr. Do Jun is in the treatment room, room 7. Si Rong nodded and unhurriedly walked toward the recovery room. Not only did Shang Garden have a restaurant, but it also had tea houses and recovery rooms. Si Rong, who had been here before, could roughly remember the route. Along the way, she exuded a cold aura that kept people away, and her eyes were hidden under the shadow of her hat. She still made everyone who passed by feel pressured. In treatment room number 7, Si Rong pushed the door open and saw a scene of wolves. A woman in a work uniform was sitting on the ground in daze. There were glass shards and blood by her hand, and blood was flowing down from her wrist. Do Jun, who was wearing a bathrobe, had a ferocious expression on his face. He sneered, "Do you believe that even if you die now, no one will care about my dried female corpse? Wouldn't it be wonderful if I just throw your body to the dogs after I'm done with you?" The woman trembled in fear, and her teary eyes were filled with despair. Si Rong's appearance was discovered by Do Jun. He immediately saw a tall figure standing at the door against the light. His face couldn't be seen clearly, and the cold aura that surrounded him made his body tremble instinctively. He took a step back. "Do Wenqing." Then, she saw the person walk in unhurriedly. When she saw the face wearing the mask, she gradually looked puzzled. "You, no, who is it?" Si Rong's reply was to sweep his leg across his face. Bang! Do Jun fell to the ground. Si Rong grabbed her and walked to the door. He said to the woman, who was still in a daze, "Stop the bleeding and call the doctor." Si Rong carried the unconscious Do Jun to the underground parking lot of Shang Garden as if no one was around. She had Do Jun's phone and car keys in her pocket. She had secretly taken them when she was pulling his belt in the toilet this morning. His intention was to leave her in Shang Garden and wait for him to find her. He threw Do Jun into a flashy red sports car, got in, inserted the key, stepped on the gas, and drove out of the garage. It was already dark outside, and the number of cars on the road had started to increase. However, Do Jun's sports car was very expensive, so no one dared to get in his way. Si Rong drove quickly and smoothly. Si Rong had one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the window, resting his chin on his palm. She had never thought that she would see Do Jun so soon. Do Jun wasn't from Yang City, so it was too much of a coincidence that he had run into Shang Garden. Therefore, when she was caught by him in the toilet, she had never thought that it was him, until that familiar scolding exploded her dusty memory like thunder. He was a direct descendant of the capital's Do family. He looked decent and usually wore a suit and leather shoes, but he was an imbecile dressed in human clothing and a beast. Every day, he was either drinking and racing or playing with women. In his own words, his greatest pleasure was to hunt for beauties, and he was also a lover of sex. Every woman who fell into his hands would be half crippled if not dead. The person he was most afraid of was his cousin, Do Wenqing, the genius of the Do family's generation, a young man who was as cold as a robot and as cruel as a robot. The fiery red sports car sped through the night and finally stopped in a dilapidated parking lot. Although the parking lot was dilapidated, the cars parked there were extraordinary. Si Rong carried her out again and walked into the elevator in the parking lot. They took the elevator to the first floor. Dong 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 dong, the shocking and rich rhythm of the music hit the eardrums. "Hey handsome, is this your first time here?" The alluring woman suddenly approached Si Rong, who had just stepped out of the elevator. Si Rong's cold gaze pierced through her, scaring her so much that she couldn't continue with her arms around his back. "Ahem, we have all the services you need. A private room, a packet of white tea, and a few more fierce men," Si Rong said. The woman was a little stunned. This man who looked abstinent and cold actually dared to say such things. "This way, please," she still agreed. Along the way, many people sized up Si Rong and the dojun, who was only wearing a bathrobe. Whether it was this strange combination or Si Rong's aura, they were both very interesting. However, this gaze was ultimately isolated outside the private room. The room's soundproofing was very good, and one could still see the panoramic floor-to-ceiling window room. The so-called white tea was a term used here. In fact, it was a poison-stimulating pin. The alluring woman soon brought everything Si Rong had asked for, including the 3 tall and mighty men. These 3 men were not only strong, but their looks were also quite passable. They were not wearing any shirts and only wore leather pants, which allowed people to easily see the extent of their capital below. "Handsome, what do you think of these? How should I address you, handsome?" The alluring woman smiled coyly, but Si Rong chased her away mercilessly. "Get out." The woman didn't get angry. She laughed and said, "As long as you're satisfied, handsome. I won't disturb you any longer." After he finished speaking, he left and closed the door. Si Rong threw dojun on the ground and ordered the 3 men indifferently, "Make him drink the white tea and then *ck him." The 3 men's expressions didn't change when they heard Si Rong's instructions. They had clearly been trained and were very knowledgeable, and they followed Si Rong's instructions very accurately. By the time they started stripping dojun, Si Rong had already turned his back to them. He was sitting in front of the French window, admiring the night view outside. Not long after, he heard the sound of heavy breathing and the sound of meat patting. She didn't turn around and said casually, "Understand S.M.?" "I understand," someone answered. "Just don't kill him," Si Rong said. For 4 hours in a row, Si Rong leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes to rest. He didn't know when dojun had woken up. At first, he was screaming and cursing, then he was begging for mercy, and finally, there were only painful moans. All of this seemed to have nothing to do with Si Rong. As long as she didn't tell him to stop, the 3 men didn't dare to stop. The vibration of her phone caused Si Huang to open his eyes. She looked at the time and it was already past 10 o'clock. He stood up from his chair and stretched his body. When he turned around, he saw a white forest of flesh. Dojun lay on the ground like a dead pig, almost unable to breathe. Si Rong looked at him coldly. The hand that Qin Fan had broken in the morning was almost impossible to recover from after a night of torment. When she walked past them, she saw an enchanting woman waiting for her just as she opened the door. She smiled when she saw her and said, "Are you done having fun, handsome? This account." The person inside is Dojun from the Do family in the capital. "If I sell him to you, he should be more than enough to pay the bill, right?" Si Huang said. The woman couldn't hide the surprise on her face. After a few changes, she said softly, "Do I need to give you the change, handsome?" Si Rong's reply was that he didn't answer and left immediately. Once they were out of this devil's den, Si Huang stood in the old garage and let out a long breath. Then, he broke into a faint smile and turned to look in a certain direction. There was nothing there. Si Rong calmly retracted his gaze, got back into his fiery red sports car, and sped off like a streak of fire. "Your Majesty, what? That man has been here. I can feel his aura." Yes, the Devil's Cave was a mysterious organization, and Si Rong didn't know its name. They had their own backers, and even if it was the Do family, they would dare to take over. The alluring woman who had received Si Rong before, Wei Yao, waited for Si Rong to leave and enter the private room she had been in. She didn't even blink when she saw Dojun's miserable state. She laughed mockingly and said to the 3 exhausted men, "You've worked hard today. You can get off work after going down." The 3 men thanked her and walked towards the door. When they were about to reach the door, they suddenly stopped. There was clearly no sound, but Wei Yao felt something, and all the hair on her body stood up. She suddenly turned around and saw two men standing at the door of the private room. The man in front was wearing a simple black undershirt, military pants, and leather boots. He had a handsome face, deep eyebrows, a perfect figure, and a cold emperor's face. Coupled with his cold and wild temperament, he was so sexy that women would want to pounce on him if they had the courage. Master Qin, Wei Yao muttered in disbelief. Qin Fan did not speak and looked at Do Jun, who was on the ground. The brawny man in military uniform behind him clicked his tongue. Hiss, this isn't a little white rabbit, it's clearly a little white tiger. However, did he know too much? Not only did he play threesome, but he also did sex, ahem. The ruffian-like words ended with Qin Fan's gaze. Wei Yao's forehead was covered in sweat as she thought, I was right when I saw that person, he's actually someone from Godfather Qin's side. This thought had just appeared when she heard Qin Fan's voice. Have you seen his appearance? No, Wei Yao blurted out. He was wearing a mask and a hat, so I couldn't see his face. I've forgotten. Qin Fan said. Yes, I didn't see anything today, Wei Yao replied. How do you plan to deal with this person? We'll have to wait for the higher-ups to decide. In my opinion, isn't he quite good at harming women? According to what he had done, it wouldn't be enough for him to sit in jail until he died. Why don't we just throw him into the iron-gray triangular sea area for others to enjoy? The ruffian-like man in military uniform said with a smile. After waiting for 2 seconds, no one responded to him, so he sighed and entertained himself. I think the little white rabbit has this intention, otherwise she wouldn't have thrown him here to do this. Sigh, I wonder what this guy did to the little white rabbit to make him so angry. Qin Fan's expression instantly turned a few degrees colder and the atmosphere in the entire private room sank. Cripple him and throw him over. His cold words left no room for argument. The ruffian-like man in military uniform was surprised. He had only said it casually and did not expect the chief to really take it to heart. Wei Yao didn't dare to resist. Yes, Si Rong was driving when the phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. She took it out with one hand and realized that it was Do Jun's phone. She had not thrown it away. The caller ID on the phone was actually Do Wenqing. The vibration stopped after 3 rings, and a message popped up. If you're not Do Jun, who are you? 2 seconds later, another message came. Let's talk. The phone vibrated again. Si Rong's first reaction was to roll down the car window, and Do Jun's phone fell into the river outside the bridge. She did not expect Do Wenqing to call her at such a time, but it did not affect her mood. As for how Do Wenqing knew that the phone was not in Do Jun's hands, she also knew in her previous life, she had seen Do Jun's reaction to Do Wenqing. He did not dare to be slow in the slightest. If the other party called, he would definitely pick up the call within seconds. The phone rang again. Si Rong parked his car in the suburbs and took out his phone. He had thought that it was Yexi calling to ask him to go home, but it turned out to be. Si Rong's lips twitched silently as he looked at the brother on the screen that he hadn't managed to change. He then answered the call. Hello, he said. Where are you? What is it? I'll take you back. Si Rong looked outside. They were already in the outskirts of the suburbs, and there were usually no taxis around. She didn't hesitate for 2 seconds and reported her location. Qin Fan's calm and low voice came through the phone's sound quality. Be good and wait. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Si Rong heard the sound of the engine after he said this. There's no rush. Drive carefully. Even Si Rong himself was taken aback when he heard this. Then, he felt that the person on the other end of the phone seemed to have fallen silent as well. Instead, he laughed out loud. In an army green off-road vehicle a few kilometers away, Qin Fan's ears twitched, and his face was a little unnaturally tense. The child's laughter, she really didn't know what to say. If he wasn't driving, he would have scratched his ears. The laughter made his ears itch, and it went all the way to his heart, making him feel uncomfortable. Don't worry, as he spoke, he nimbly put on the Bluetooth headset with one hand and switched to driving with the other. Yes, Si Rong replied indifferently. Then, he put down his phone, adjusted the car seat, and leaned back. What are you doing? A soft voice came from the phone. If Si Rong's hearing wasn't enhanced, he probably wouldn't have heard it. She picked up the phone again in surprise. You didn't hang up? Under normal circumstances, he would have hung up after that. A certain man, who had put on his headphones to make it easier for him to have a long chat, was silently hurt. Si Rong chuckled and put the phone to his ear as he continued to lie down. He said lazily, "What do you want to say?" "I want to hear you speak." Chin Fan's next sentence of explanation came. "Just listening to your voice makes me feel comfortable." Fortunately, Si Rong understood what he meant. If anyone else had listened to him, they would only have made things worse. "What's the payment for letting me chat with you?" Si Rong said indifferently. "What do you want?" It was her usual deep and crisp voice, but Si Rong could hear a hint of pampering in it. She chuckled to herself for overthinking. "I registered a company, but I'm still underage and don't have much money, so the process is a little slow." "All right," he said. Chin Fan agreed too quickly, so Si Rong didn't suspect that he was being perfunctory. He smiled faintly and said, "What else do you want to talk about? Shouldn't you be dedicated to your work after getting paid?" However, there was no more sound from the other side of the phone, nor did they hang up. Since Chin Fan didn't hang up on him, Si Rong just let him do so and didn't initiate any conversation. There was clearly no word, but the faint breathing of another person could be heard in his ear. It was a wonderful experience without a real body beside him. Dong dong, Si Rong opened his eyes in a daze and saw Chin Fan's cold face outside the window. His expression softened a little when he met Si Rong's eyes, and he mouthed, "Open the door." Si Rong finally realized that he had fallen asleep. He rolled down the window. "That's fast." Chin Fan frowned. "If you want to sleep, open the window to let in some air. When you are still alone, don't sleep in the car in the suburbs." Si Rong also knew that he had done something wrong and didn't understand how he had been so careless. He replied casually, "I knew you were coming." Chin Fan was speechless. It was as if her heart had been stabbed again, stuffy and itchy. Si Rong didn't notice the change in his expression and continued, "Wait a moment, I'll deal with this car." After he finished speaking, he got out of the car and controlled the expensive sports car with his car key to drive it to the river not far away. "I told you, don't do anything bad at night." Chin Fan stood at the back and said. Si Rong turned around and looked at him with an innocent and rascal-like expression. "I'm done." What education, what punishment, they were all forgotten by Chin Fan to outer space. He strode over to Si Rong and ruffled her hair with his large palm. He sighed and said, "You're clearly a bad child, but why are you so lovable?" Si Rong dodged after being rubbed twice and stared at him with an inexplicable expression. This little white tiger had a soft and snow-white appearance, but its eyes were fierce and vigilant, making Chin Fan's heart beat a few more times, and his hands itched. "Get in the car, I'll send you back." It was too difficult to wait for a taxi in such a place. Si Rong didn't want others to know what he was doing, so he could only leave with Chin Fan. "Do Jun, it's the man we met in the Shang Garden toilet this morning. Did he do something to you again?" In the car, Chin Fan asked while driving. Si Rong sat in the auxiliary seat and didn't say anything. She was too lazy to explain and did not want to lie. "He's a scumbag. If he's dead, then so be it. You shouldn't have done it." There was no blame in his tone. Instead, "This is very dangerous." Si Rong tilted his head and stared at the side of his face for a few seconds. "I want to do it." He didn't explain why he wanted to do it, and his casual tone made it seem like it wasn't worth mentioning. If the girls saw Si Rong in this state, they would definitely exclaim how cool he was and how handsome he was. In Chin Fan's eyes, he was willful. An underage boy would always act on impulse. Who didn't do that in the past? It was just that back then, all the naughty children in their courtyard had been taught a lesson by fists. This child, Chin Fan quietly swept a glance at Si Rong and turned his eyes over her body. He once again found a difficult problem. "I can't help." "If you want to do it, then do it." After Chin Fan finished speaking, he was afraid that he would lead the person astray, so he added, "But it depends on the person." Si Rong chuckled. Did he really think that she was a rebellious brat? When Chin Fan heard the laughter, his mood was also affected. He asked again, "How did those things know?" "What is it?" "The way to teach Do Jun a lesson." Si Huang rolled his eyes. "I saw it on the internet." A certain man who usually didn't go online frowned. "Watch less in the future." Oh, Chin Fan could hear her perfunctory words, but he had nothing to say. He was not involved in the world of netizens, so he did not understand the scope of this. After receiving Si Rong's call, Yexi went downstairs and waited in the parking lot. The night wind blew, and he wrapped his coat around himself. He looked up and saw an army green off-road vehicle driving over and stopping not far away. A tall man got out of the driver's seat. Yushi opened his eyes and thought, he looked a little familiar. Before he could recall where he had seen this figure, he saw the door of the passenger seat open and a familiar slender figure walk out. The two of them stood together, talking about something. The scene was surprisingly harmonious. At this moment, Si-rong turned his head and met Yushi's eyes. He said to Qin-fan, "I'm leaving." He did not care if Qin-fan had anything else to say and walked in the direction of Yushi. Yushi looked at the person who walked to his side and moved his lips, but he still did not ask out of curiosity. When she was about to enter, she turned back to look at the man and found that the tall man was still standing in the same place and looking in her direction. As it was from the front, he could see the man's face clearly. His expression froze and even his steps stopped. "What's the matter?" Yushi returned to his senses. "That person." "What?" He lazily squinted his eyes and looked over. Yushin swallowed his saliva and said calmly, "He's so handsome." Si Huang's eyes flickered as she recalled Qin-fan's looks. Indeed, he was one of the top-tier looks in the entertainment circle, especially when he had a tall and strong figure that was not exaggerated. That kind of contradicting aura that had the abstinence of a soldier and also exuded a wild and sexy aura. No matter if it was now or the 10 years in the future that she had experienced in her previous life, no one could compare to him. The two of them returned to the hotel room without saying a word. Thanks to the Yushi, Si-rong's night tour, this time was not discovered by director Liu and the others. After taking a shower and changing into a clean bathrobe, Si-rong lay on the soft bed. His chest was unraveled, and his heart was at ease. Buzz, 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 the phone that was thrown on the bed vibrated. Si-rong took the phone and answered it when he saw the caller ID. "Are you ready to sleep?" Qin-fan's low and hoarse voice entered his ears through the sound quality of the phone. It was sexier than usual, and there was less pressure that one couldn't get close to. Si-rong guessed that he had also just come out of the shower, so his voice was a little moist. He asked, "You just finished showering?" Qin-fan, woo. Si-rong heard a soft rustle in his ear, and he thought to himself, "Is she drying my hair?" "What is it?" she asked. "I'm going to sleep." Qin-fan's side was silent. Si-rong felt that since he had nothing to say, he should hang up. His fingers were just about to press on the phone when he heard Qin-fan's voice. "Can you sing?" What was this? Si-rong thought for a moment. "Yes." "Qin-fan, if you don't want to talk, then sing a song for me." "Why? I can't sleep." Si-rong had wanted to say, "What does it have to do with me that you can't sleep, Your Majesty?" It seems that his condition is quite serious. He can't even sleep. Tisk, tisk. Qin-fan, yes. Although he was a little hesitant, he still admitted it. Si-rong's heart skipped a beat. He felt that this person was completely different from his first impression in his previous life and the rumors he had heard later on. How should he put it? She touched her nose. This was probably the so-called contrast Mo. He had the face of a cold emperor, and his aura was like that of an African lion. He was usually very fierce and overbearing. However, after getting along with him, she felt that this person was not scary at all. He was taking care of her so wishfully, and now he was so obedient. "I'll try. If it doesn't work, I won't disturb you," Qin-fan said very directly. Si-rong was dumbfounded. Then, he snorted. She didn't sing any lyrics, and her humming voice was more delicate than usual. It was a little androgynous, ethereal, and low, like the boundless sky and sea. The singing of the siren was gentle and charming, dragging people into the deep sea. In less than 10 seconds, Si-rong's humming was interrupted by the sound of snoring from the other end of the phone. She was startled, but she immediately confirmed that the snoring sound on the other end was Qin-fan sleeping to death. Her expression changed unpredictably, and in the end, she burst out laughing. The next day, Si-rong woke up early as usual. After his morning run, he had breakfast and went to the set with Yushi. This time, the attitude of the crew members towards them was completely different. Some greeted them with a smile, while others gave way to them with a respectful expression. It was unknown whether it was because of Si-rong's performance yesterday or because of the relationship between Elder Tai and Grandma Yu. Si-rong didn't seem to notice these changes. He faced them the same way he did in the past. Du Chang had been waiting for her in the dressing room for a long time. When she saw Si-rong enter, she whispered, "Your Majesty, we'll be shooting the first scene of your appearance today. It's an outdoor shoot, so we have to prepare in advance." Si Rong nodded and sat on the chair, allowing Du Chang to do whatever she wanted on his face. At such a close distance, Du Chang could even see her eyelashes clearly. She was excited and encouraged herself, "Your Majesty, can I be your temporary makeup artist? You have to touch up your makeup occasionally when you're shooting outdoors." Si Rong didn't look up because he was putting on his eyeliner. However, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his gentle smile was clean and gentle. "I should be the one thanking you." "No need, no need." Du Chang was so happy that her heart was beating fast. "I'm His Majesty's knight, this is what I should do." "What the hell is a knight?" Yushi, who was standing at the side, secretly remembered this and decided to check it out when he was free. After Si Huang was done with his makeup and had changed into his costume, Du Chang had also packed her makeup kit and followed after her in high spirits. As soon as he went out, he saw An Ziyuan, who was also dressed in his costume, and Guan Li, who was dressed in a neat autumn outfit. "Are you all ready?" Director Liu, who had just arrived, asked them, and his gaze swept across Si Rong. The few of them expressed that there was no problem. At Director Liu's order, a group of people got into the car and rushed to the location to shoot. Guan Li and An Ziyuan both had their own nanny van. Si Rong and Director Liu sat in the same car, while Yushi and Du Chang sat in the same car with the staff. Director Liu sized Si Rong up with a meaningful look and clicked his tongue. "I'm just curious. It's fine if you don't use Fenghua's resources, but you're so familiar with Teacher Yu and the others, so why don't you have an assistant?" He couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. "I came out in a hurry," Si Rong said indifferently. "I didn't have time to prepare and I didn't have money. Teacher Yu doesn't lack people. I don't really need people now." Director Liu didn't say anything else. He looked at the young man beside him, his eyes clear and unwavering. He didn't think that Si Rong was young and competitive, and that he didn't want to use others' help. Instead, he really had his own opinions and plans. However, Director Liu, who was still praising Si Rong for his perseverance and self-confidence, soon realized how foolish his worries were. "It's Lord Sect Leader, look over. Cult Master and is simply too handsome. Queen Guan, a goddess, she's more beautiful in person." At the location of the outdoor shoot, there were already many locals who had heard the news or fans who had specially come to gather. As soon as they saw An Ziyuan, Guan Li, and the others getting out of the nanny van, they immediately shouted and were blocked out by the security guards who managed the order. Director Liu's car arrived behind them. He wasn't supposed to attract any attention, but it was different now that Si Rong was following him. Young Master Qinji's snow-white ancient costume with plum blossoms embroidered on it was as eye-catching as snow under the sun. Si Rong's tall figure stood out from the crowd, and his delicate face, which was covered in light makeup, didn't show any traces of makeup. His skin was as fair as jade, and his long eyebrows reached his temples. His eyes were like spring water, and he was so elegant that he instantly captured everyone's attention. "I know, he was the newbie who played the role of young Master Qinji. I've seen the promotional video of him and the sect leader together." A girl shouted in surprise. "I thought it was the promotional clips that made him handsome, but why is he even more handsome in person? And it was so tender, it's so tender." "Your Majesty." The sudden shout drowned out the mixed discussion. Your Majesty, we are your knights." "Your Majesty, don't tire yourself out." "Your Majesty, take care of your health." "Your Majesty, have you had breakfast?" This rhythmic and disciplined greeting stunned Director Liu and the others. Si Rong also stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction of the voice. A group of girls were looking in their direction. The girl standing in the front had straight black hair, arched brows, and phoenix eyes. Her expressionless face made her look very steady. Director Liu's expression changed when he saw the girl's appearance. "Yan Yan, what are you doing here?" "I'm on leave." The girl with long black hair was Liu Yan, an art student from Washing Art School. She said expressionlessly, "Do what you need to do. I won't disturb you." Director Liu thought to himself, "You're already here, and you're still asking me not to disturb you." "Stay here." Director Liu glared at Si Rong after he warned Liu Yan, "You're a fatale." Si Rong put on an innocent and apologetic expression in front of Director Liu. When Director Liu couldn't bear to look at him anymore, he turned to Liu Yan and the other girls and chuckled. He blinked his eyes and said silently, "Thank you." Then, he put a finger to his lips. "Shish." "Ah!" The shrieks were getting louder and louder, making Director Liu, who was walking in front, turn back with a black face. he shouted at Huo Shuiwei angrily, still not rolling over. Only then did the girls realize that they had made a mistake. The commotion died down and they tried to salvage the situation. They covered their mouths or made shushing sounds as they stared at Si Rong with innocent or apologetic expressions. Si Rong furrowed his brows in frustration, but his beautiful eyes were clearly filled with a warm smile. Every girl who saw her knew that she wasn't really angry, nor did she blame them. She was practically drowning. "All right, Your Majesty, please don't be so handsome." "Wah, he looks so gentlemanly and gentle, and he's so obedient," one of Nziyuan's fans mumbled. As soon as he said that, a girl beside him said, "Yeah, I think so too. I just asked the girl over there and she said he's only 16, so tender." "Why do they call him Your Majesty?" "I've already asked around. His name is Si Rong, and his school ID is Wind Emperor. Ever since someone called him Your Majesty on a forum, everyone has been calling him that. It's good to call Her Majesty. Her Majesty is so cute." Unconsciously, most of the female fans who had come for Xin Yuan started to talk about Si Rong. They mingled with Lu Yan's group of knights and had a great time. In the temporary rest house, Ziyuan and Guan Li both saw this scene. Ziyuan's eyes flickered and he laughed. "Before I met Si Rong, I didn't believe that anyone was born to be in the entertainment industry. But he's not like a newbie at all. He's calm and collected, and his ability to attract fans is too strong." Guan Li glanced at him. "You can learn from him." And Xin Yuan studied Si Rong carefully and said helplessly, "You're already so old, yet you're still acting cute?" The corners of Guan Li's mouth twitched. Learn from him. He won't ignore the efforts of his fans and value them. And Xin Yuan was stunned. As his expression changed, Si Rong had already walked over. "Sister Guan, senior in." Just from the way he addressed Si Rong, one could tell how distant he was to the two of them. And Ziyuan felt helpless. It was true that he hadn't really wanted to help Si Rong back then. "Little Si, give way to me when we rehearse later." And Xin Yuan laughed. Si Rong smiled shyly. "Senior in is too kind. Who's being polite with you?" And Ziyuan deliberately put on a cold face. "I don't want all the girls here to have their souls stolen by you." Si Rong's eyes narrowed. He stroked his chin and chuckled. "I'm short of fans." There was a saying in the world called overwhelming smile, and Ziyuan felt that it wasn't excessive at all to use it on Si Rong. For a moment, his heart was beating so fast that he almost lost himself in this smile. The other party's lips were clearly curved in a faint smile, but because of the light flowing in her slightly narrowed eyes, it was dazzling and rendered a myriad of magnificence. This beauty had already surpassed that of men and women. It was a pure and compelling charm. And Ziyuan suddenly understood the excited reaction of the group of female fans. At the same time, he was silently sad, as if his fans were about to be lost to the other party. Today's outdoor shoot was at the famous film studio in Xuanyang City. The staff quickly set up the scene while Si Rong and Xin Yuan touched up their makeup. With Director Lu's order, the two of them officially went on stage. Si Rong sat in a wooden wheelchair with the pond and the pavilion behind him. There was an old tree beside him. It would probably be made into a romantic viburnum tree in the future. A few extra actors also went on stage. The staff members then set up the light panels, cameras, and so on. Director Lu stared at the camera screen in front of him. After making sure that there were no problems, he made a hand gesture and said to Si Rong, "Do what you did during the audition. Okay, I'll leave the rest to Lil Ou and the others." Xiao Ou and the others were the crew members in charge of the shooting. Si Rong nodded with a smile. The fans outside, who were being held back by security, were even more nervous than she was. Action! This sound rang out. Si Huang's aura changed instantly. An invisible but seemingly real aura surrounded him. He was so indifferent that no one dared to approach him. She closed her eyes and fell into a light sleep. Not far away, the extras were quarreling. No matter how loud they quarreled, it seemed that they could not wake her up. One side of the people's voices became louder and louder. Occasionally, they would glance sideways at the peerless young master in the wheelchair. They wanted to use this to wake her up, but they did not dare to take the initiative to go up and call for help. Suddenly, a man dressed in a guard's uniform took a few steps forward. The man in blue cotton clothes wanted to stop him, but he was too late. These few steps had touched young Master Qinji's arc. She lazily opened her eyes and the camera immediately zoomed in on her. Director Liu was shocked to find that his previous worries had been completely unnecessary. Si Rong had given him yet another surprise. It was her first time acting, so she was very experienced with the camera sense. Under the close-up, he could see every change in Si Rong's expression clearly. It was more of a charm than it was in reality. It was simply a luxurious visual feast. Director Liu's heart beat violently. She had snow-white skin, thick eyelashes, and black pupils that gave people a feeling of extreme clarity. There was no emotion in them, and she did not feel cold, but she was unapproachable. It was so exquisite that it didn't seem human, but it was also full of vitality and couldn't be fake. It wasn't like they didn't give him a close-up before, but why did it feel different today? Director Liu took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in his heart. He raised his head to look at Si Rong in real life. Even as a director, he was a little dazzled by the sight. Then, he understood. The equipment was not as complete as before, and they had filmed it indoors for old iron to see. This person was simply born to be in the entertainment industry. At this moment, Director Liu had the same thought as an Anyuan. He had seen many beautiful people who didn't appear on camera. Someone like Si Rong, who had heaven-defying looks and was also heaven-defying on camera, was simply going against the heavens of the entertainment industry. Director Liu retracted his thoughts and immediately shouted angrily. Everyone looked at him. Director Liu immediately started scolding them. What are you guys doing? Why are you in a daze? What's with the mouth, can't it talk? The man who was scolded was embarrassed and his face turned red. He was too embarrassed to say that he was stunned by the young master Qinji in front of him. He was also suppressed by the other party's aura, and for a moment, he even forgot to say his lines. One more time, Director Liu said coldly. Once again, the man with the cameo performed better than the last time, but his expression was still a little stiff. Most directors might think that an extra's performance was enough, but Director Liu was famous for his perfectness. He knew the reason why Si Rong was not performing well. After all, Si Rong's acting skills and aura were indeed not in line with her age and experience. Even Yan Yan, who had been in a few idol dramas and had a few supporting roles in movies, was crushed by her, let alone an extra like him. Faced with this situation, he couldn't convince himself to ask Si Rong to go easy on her, nor could he blame her for being too strong. However, it was a little heart-wrenching to meet with such a hurdle right from the start. As she was lost in thought, she suddenly heard Si Rong's voice. You can lower your eyes and not look at me. Si Rong calmly and gently said to the man with the extra, lower your head appropriately, but don't lower your face. Otherwise, I won't be able to hear what you're saying. Let's do that. Director Liu's eyes lit up. The man looked at Si Rong with gratitude and admiration, secretly cheering himself on. This time, it went very smoothly. After the side character's oral account, they told young Master Qinji the news of the Feng Dynasty Crown Prince's visit. Young Master Qinji indifferently perfunctorily brushed them off. From this, the Feng Dynasty Crown Prince, Feng Kang, appeared. And Ziyuan, who was wearing a high crown and luxurious clothes, strode over. His nobility was emitted from his inner self, and his arrogance was revealed in his eyes. Si Rong turned to look, his eyes as calm as a mirror. The look in his eyes angered the respected and pampered crown prince of the Feng dynasty. What do you mean by that look? Don't you know how to kneel and pay your respects when you see me? When he didn't get a response, the corners of his mouth lifted. I forgot that you can't kneel even if you want to. If his fans were to see such a vicious and devilish Yuan, they would definitely exclaim, he's so handsome. Today, however, the fans all had complicated expressions on their faces as they muttered, Aiya, isn't Lord Sect Leader a little too much? She's still an underage girl, and it's already pitiful enough that she's crippled. Why are you still attacking her? I don't have the face to look, Great Sect Master, I think you're bullying His Majesty. Although Cult Master is a little, he's a little sharp-tongued, but after some education, he can still be forgiven. As for the girls from the Knights Regiment, Liu Yan was very good at leading and comforted them, telling them not to scream in anger and affect the filming. According to the plot, Si Rong was naturally unaffected. Instead, he lightly slapped Qin Yuan across the air and almost made him vomit blood. The atmosphere between the two immediately froze. This scene was a great test of micro-acting skills, using eyes and facial expressions to explain everything. and Ziyuan's devilish smile disappeared. His dark eyes were like a sword that had been unsheathed, and his lips were pursed into a line. His rare serious look was so manly that it made his fans, who had always been used to his devilish charm, cry out. However, Sirong, who was standing opposite him, was not suppressed by him. He remained indifferent, as if he was untainted by even a speck of dust. No matter what you do, I will still stand tall. Disrespecting the royal family should be beheaded, and Qin Yuan said slowly. He didn't need any dubbing from the voice actors. His words were heavy and grand, shocking everyone who heard it. A group of men dressed in guard uniforms drew their weapons and surrounded Sirong. The camera was raised and fixed on Qin Yuan first, then on Sirong. Director Liu clenched his fists as he looked at the screen. He was looking forward to it. This was the first scene of young Master Qinji's appearance. It was the first impression that he would give to the audience in the future. It could be said that the highlight of this scene was young Master Qinji. It all depended on whether Sirong could grasp this opportunity. Not only Director Liu but the fans outside were also jostling around, wanting to see the plot development more clearly. Ha! A light laugh, without much emotion and a little nasal, seemed to come from a deep valley far away. It turned into a breeze and entered the ear, tickling and numbing the heart. Young Master Qinji, who had been expressionless since a moment ago, raised his eyelids. His eyes were like deep black pearls in the sea, smooth, bright, and bottomless. His brows relaxed, and his completely exposed eyes stared at the people in front of him, but he could not see anyone. His light pink lips curled into a smile, and he said, "Where did you get the courage to fight in Qinji Villa?" His raised chin and upturned eyes were so beautiful that even ink could not be seen clearly. His tone was not threatening, and he even had a hint of a smile, as if he was looking at a child's unreasonable tantrum. The domineering aura that Qin Yuan had created was instantly shattered. Looking at the cold face of the Feng dynasty crown prince, he was like a rebellious child in his second year of middle school, and he was arrogant and domineering because there were many people. PFFT. No one knew who laughed first. Following that, the fans burst into laughter. At the same time, their cheers rang out. Your Majesty is simply too handsome, I can't be more handsome. Ha 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 ha. I suddenly feel that Sect Master is also very cute. Is this being Tsunere and awkward? Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, I love you. And Ziyuan didn't want to admit that when he saw Sirong's elegant smile and the last glance that met his eyes, he felt that something was off. Fortunately, this scene could end here, and Director Liu's cut sounded. After the scene completely exploded, the fans' shouts seemed to break through the sky as if they were afraid that people couldn't hear them. When he heard the shouts of Your Majesty, and the sect leader has been counterattacked, and the sect leader is so awkward and cute, he was almost drunk, and he almost couldn't maintain the expression on his face. Let's take a break. Director Liu observed the scene again and nodded in satisfaction. A rare smile appeared on his face as he shouted to Sirong and the others, "We're going to hang a wire later. It's Sirong's first time. If you don't understand, you can ask Qin Yuan." During the break, Ziyuan was surrounded by his assistants, who brought him water and touched up his makeup. He had no intention of greeting Sirong. Sirong glanced at him but didn't disturb him. However, this scene fell into the eyes of the female fans outside, and it immediately triggered an infinite maternal love. Why doesn't His Majesty have an assistant? Isn't Your Majesty the young master of Fenghua Entertainment? You don't know, His Majesty didn't rely on his family at all when he debuted. He's planning to start from scratch. Wah! What an encouraging feeling. They didn't lower their volume when they were discussing, and Sirong found it funny. He shook his head and saw Du Chang running over with a thermos. Your Majesty, you must be tired. I made this in the morning, Du Chang said. Sirong looked at her in surprise. Du Chang was a little embarrassed. I'd better not drink it. After all, there was once an incident in the entertainment industry where a celebrity received something from a fan and was poisoned after eating it. From then on, most idols and celebrities would not casually accept food from their fans. Du Chang was about to take the thermal flask back when a hand grabbed her hand. She looked up excitedly and saw Sirong's gentle smile. I'm hungry. Du Chang, she only snapped out of her daze after she saw her idol drink a few mouthfuls of soup. With a shrill scream, Du Chang ignored Yushi's speechless expression and bounced towards Liu Yan's group, announcing loudly, Mission complete. I'll take good care of Her Majesty, so you can just watch from the side. The female fans of the Night Order revealed their ferocity. F***ck. Is there anyone who attracts hatred like you? Lu Yan expressionlessly made a hand gesture to the girls to be quiet, then strode into the production crew. Due to director Lu's previous performance, everyone knew that she had a relationship with him, so the security guard thought about it and didn't stop her. Lu Yan walked up to Si Rong and looked at the boy who was about the same age as her. She removed her backpack with a cold expression, took out a cotton pad-like object, and handed it to Si Rong with both hands. Si Rong immediately recognized the function of this item. He stood up from his chair and reached out to accept it. He said softly, "You're so attentive. You must have spent a lot of time, right?" "No, I didn't do it alone," Lu Yan said expressionlessly. Ningning and Zhou Xiaowen also did it. Si Rong didn't know who she was referring to, but when he noticed that Lu Yan's ears were already as red as blood, he smiled and stopped staring at her. "You came in handy. You've been of great help." Lu Yan still wanted to say something, but Director Lu, who had been staring at them, couldn't take it anymore. He roared, "Stinky brat, stop seducing my daughter." Before Si Rong could react, Lu Yan glared at Director Lu. Her queen-like aura was comparable to Guan Li's. HMPH, Director Lu did not dare to voice his anger at his daughter. Peeved. Si Rong chuckled. Lu Yan's ears twitched. She was too embarrassed to turn around and look at Si Rong, so she immediately strode over to the staff. The crew already knew that she was Director Lu's daughter, so they didn't dare to neglect her. However, Lu Yan took off her backpack again and gave small gift bags to the crew members. She said with a cold face and a serious expression, "These are biscuits and desserts made by our Night Order. They are all natural without any coloring. Please take good care of Her Majesty." All the staff members were speechless. He didn't dare to reject a gift from Director Lu's daughter, but if he accepted it, he had to agree to her request. So cunning. The female staff accepted it happily and was secretly excited. "Actually, we've wanted to take care of Si Rong for a long time, okay? She just couldn't find a reason or feel embarrassed. Director Lu's daughter was really awesome." A female staff member immediately bounced in front of Si Rong and said gently, "Young Master Si, is there anything you need my help with? You can serve me tea and water, I'm free anyway." The women who were a step slower gritted their teeth. The male porters almost vomited blood. F***ck, you're still idle, but there are clearly many things you can do. Why did she have to serve that little brat for free? Director Lu watched helplessly as the female crew members eagerly asked about Si Rong's well-being and surrounded her with the urge to massage her shoulders and back. He suddenly felt that his previous impression of Si Rong not having an assistant and his admiration for her endurance of hardship was ridiculous. This guy didn't even need to spend money to hire an assistant, and a bunch of people would rush over to serve him. Ha 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 ha. I suddenly feel like I've misjudged the sect leader. This isn't a devilish attack, it's clearly an awkward one. Fujoshi's high alert. No matter what an Anyuan is, His Majesty is ours. His Majesty is simply too handsome, alright? What to do? I don't think I can see any other man besides His Majesty. Putting aside the issue of the previous bet, this martial arts scene was still very successful. Other than Xin Yuan making a mistake in the middle of the filming and needing to reshoot, there were no other problems. Si Rong was put down to rest. The woman who had tied him up with wires ran over to untie him, and another woman handed him a cup of warm water. This meticulous service was even more loving than a professional assistant's. Even Director Lu couldn't bear to look at it, not to mention the envy, jealousy, and hatred in the hearts of the male staff. And Xin Yuan was depressed, but on the surface, he was very dedicated to reshooting the scene that he had made a mistake. When Director Lu expressed his satisfaction and could put him down, Si Huang raised his eyebrows. "Wait," she politely said to the cameraman and the staff who were controlling the wire, "I'll have to trouble you big brothers to fulfill the punishment for Senior An's bet." The few of them were both pleased and embarrassed when Si Rong called them big brother, and Ziyuan gritted his teeth and tried to maintain his dignity by smiling. "What's wrong with that? If you're willing to bet, you must accept your loss. Start shaking." After he said that, the staff member really did not hold back and turned around in a big circle. When Xin Yuan came down, the crown on his head was tilted. How could the fans below let go of such a unique benefit? All of them took out their mobile phones to take pictures even though they were strictly warned by the security guards not to post it randomly. They were still overjoyed and thought, if you don't give it to me, keep it to yourself. His Majesty couldn't be better. The truth had proven that their emperor could be even better. The morning's shooting was very successful. Director Liu was very satisfied and took an early rest. Yushi also happened to arrive with two men carrying fruit boxes. When they saw Si Rong, they asked, "I'm not too late, am I?" Si Rong shook his head at him, then turned to everyone and shouted, "It's time to distribute the fruits, everyone gets a share." There was no reason not to respond to a male god's call. The women were the first to come over and thank him sweetly. The smile on their faces was so bright that it seemed like they could blossom. Young Master Si is so considerate. He brought fruits for everyone on his first official shoot. Si Rong laughed heartily. "I have to thank Senior N for that. I just got Yexi to look for Senior N's manager and start a small bet. Whoever loses will have to pay for the fruit." As soon as this was said, everyone was even more happy. The group of people chuckled and shouted at Xin Yuan, "Thank you, Cult Master N." And Ziyuan was speechless. As she stared at Si Rong's clean and bright smile, she cursed in her heart, "A monster. Why are you pretending to be a pure and innocent teenager?" Si Rong glanced at him indifferently, and Xin Yuan looked away. This guy didn't need to pretend, he was really a young man. According to Si Rong's instructions, Yexi bought a large amount of fruit. After distributing the boxes to the crew, Director Liu, Guan Li, and the others, there were still a few boxes left. He asked the two men to move to the fan group outside the security guard. The fans looked doubtful but also a little expectant, until Yushi said, "Si Rong told me to prepare this for you." After getting the answer that they had been waiting for, some girls immediately screamed. "Also, it's time for a break. You guys should find a place to rest and have lunch. It's tiring to keep standing," Yexi said calmly, then continued, "I'm also helping Si Huang to pass on the message." The group of girls, regardless of their age, were all moved. "Tisk, you're just pretending to be kind," one of Guan Li's male fans mocked him sourly. HMPH, it was better than others who didn't even know how to put on a good appearance. This fruit was prepared by His Majesty for those who deserve it. "You have no more." Immediately, a girl retorted him, and then the girl's words hit the man so hard that his face turned red and he had nothing to say. In the villa on Waiming Mountain. Today, Qin Fan had a good night's sleep, but he was woken up by Grandma Shang, who didn't see him come out to eat breakfast and knocked on the door worriedly. This experiment allowed Qin Fan to confirm that Si Rong had a special effect on him. While he was exercising, his mind was filled with memories of his time with Si Rong. He was either proud, cool, or shy. It was simply like a loach that was constantly changing, making people unable to grasp it, but also making people want to hold on tightly. After Qin Fan finished a set of difficult training, he was drenched in sweat. He took a shower and came out for lunch. When the dishes were served, Grandma Shang stared at him and asked, "Did you sleep well yesterday?" Qin Fan, "Yes." "And the reason?" Qin Fan took the bowl that the butler handed over. "Si Rong sang a lullaby for me." Peeved cough cough. Grandpa Qin wiped his mouth and the table with a napkin awkwardly. He gave his first wife a look, indicating that she didn't need to mind him and that she should continue. "That's to say," Grandma Shang said seriously, "it's certain that this child will have a miraculous effect on you. What do you plan to do?" The image of Si Rong rejecting him appeared in Qin Fan's mind. He was silent for 2 seconds before saying, "I'll handle it. Don't interfere." Grandma Shang was very calm. Sure, she was confident in her grandson's charisma. No man in the army could disobey her only grandson. However, Grandma Shang had miscalculated one point. The person Qin Fan wanted to take down now was not a real man. The lunch ended in silence. Qin Fan returned to his room. He always felt a little anxious in his heart, and he wanted to do something. His eyes swept to the phone next to the tofu block quilt on the bed. His eyes flashed and he took it. There were 2 missed calls on it, and they were signed by Guo Chengshang. Qin Fan didn't care and skillfully pressed Si Rong's phone number. He felt that it was a little troublesome, so he naturally set her number to the number 1 shortcut key and then dialed it. Qin Fan himself didn't realize that in the midst of the do-do-do waiting sound, his expression eased up and he restrained the murderous aura around him. He was simply so sexy that he was blindingly handsome. On the set, Si Rong had just finished his lunchbox. He took out his phone from his pocket and found a quiet place to answer the call. "Hello," he said. A clear and mellow voice entered Chin Fan's ears through the sound of the phone. The corners of his lips unconsciously rose. "It's me." "Yes." Si Rong's gaze shifted, and he smiled at the woman who had handed him a glass of warm water. After she left with a satisfied smile on her face, he continued, "Did you sleep well last night?" The corners of Chin Fan's lips curled up again. "Very good, all thanks to you." Si Rong took a sip of water, and his voice became clearer. "Have you explained the company's matters as well?" Chin Fan was stunned for less than a second. He understood what Si Rong was saying and replied, "Yes, it can be sent within 3 days." Si Rong replied with an, "Is there anything else?" Chin Fan was silent for a moment. He also did not know why he made this call. "I'll hang up if there's nothing else." Chin Fan was thinking about something when the call was hung up. His previously relaxed expression immediately returned to its icy cold state. Buzz buzz buzz, the phone in his hand vibrated again. Chin Fan's heart was filled with joy, but when he picked up the call a hoarse and ruffian-like voice came from his ear. "Master, why did you leave yesterday just like that and leave me alone there? You didn't answer my 2 calls, but you actually picked up within seconds." Chin Fan frowned. "What is it?" When Guo Chengshang, who was on the other end of the phone, heard this, his hair stood on end. "Sir, Do Wenqing has already discovered Do Jun's accident and has the intention to investigate the little white rabbit." Chin Fan scoffed coldly. "Who asked you to give him a nickname?" Guo Chengshang was speechless. "Master, are you focusing on the wrong thing? I was wrong. I meant Si Rong. Do Wenqing won't be able to find Si Rong for a while." "But master, I don't understand why you value him so much. We're all busy helping him out here, but he's enjoying himself with so many women. He's having a great time." Hearing Guo Chengshang's complaints, Chin Fan was a little unhappy. However, his attention was quickly attracted by his last sentence. "Having fun with a bunch of women?" He recalled hearing a woman's soft voice on the phone with Si Rong. "Isn't that so?" The sound of typing came from Guo Chengshang's side. "The Weibo is going crazy. Tisk tisk." Not only was he having fun with women, but he was also having fun with the men in the same industry. Chin Fan's face became even colder. Guo Chengshang said, I forgot that you don't play with these things. I'll send you a message, you'll know once you click on it." Chin Fan hung up the phone after listening. In less than 2 seconds, he received a message from Guo Chengshang. Chin Fan clicked on the link, but it wasn't Si Rong's photo that appeared on the link. Instead, it was the man he had seen when Si Rong was shooting publicity photos. Once he saw that it wasn't Si Rong, Chin Fan lost interest in continuing to look. However, he noticed Si Rong's name with a glance. "An Anyuan V. Your Majesty is the true dragon at Son of Heaven, and your martial arts are email protected. Am no match for you, so am willing to accept my loss. Si Rongwei V." Below this post was a video. Chin Fan clicked to start. He didn't care about the figure in the video who was hanging on the wire. His ears moved and focused on listening to the cheers in the video. The 2 words, Si Rong, or Your Majesty, appeared in a very high frequency. After the video finished playing, Chin Fan's gaze landed on the comments section below. "Aiya, had cult master and been subdued by His Majesty? Do I have to sleep with you, or to serve you in bed? Ha 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 ha, I'm at the scene. His Majesty can't be more handsome. The sect master is also cute. Please explain the truth to the person above." Chin Fan flipped through a few pages and finally found the long explanation that he had written on the 2nd floor. After he finished reading it in detail, he looked at the photo of Anyi's Yuan V Weibo account with a disdainful look. Then, he clicked on the blue font, Si Rong V, without any guidance. This time, Si Rong's profile photo came into his view. The young man in the photo wasn't looking at the camera, so someone must have secretly taken a photo of him. He was sleeping on the chair with his eyes closed. His facial features were completely exposed to the public. They were soft and delicate like a piece of art. His short black hair and fair skin were bright and clear, and he was simply beautiful beyond the world. Chin Fan's gaze deepened. His fingers touched the photo and slid over the person's cheeks and hair. He could still vaguely remember the softness and smoothness of this person's hair. When he touched it, it made his heart soften unconsciously. It was hard to imagine that this stubborn and strong-willed young man, Every part of his body was so soft. His cheeks were, his hair was like that, and it seemed like even his waist and arms were like that. His heart softened again, however when he saw the situation below Sirong's profile picture, he pursed his lips. Sirong you're welcome. Remember, there's always someone better, email protected, and on Your Majesty is the true dragon, son of heaven. Your martial arts are unparalleled. I'm no match for you. I'm willing to accept my loss, Sirong The fans in the comment area exploded with all kinds of comments. His Majesty, the Emperor, is mighty and domineering. What the hell is obedient? Your Majesty, you've only just ascended the throne. Is it really good to be so arrogant? Actually, what I wanted to say is that it's fine if you can be even more arrogant. Qin Fan's expression grew darker and darker as he read on. He followed some of the information in the comments section and found someone else's account. From there, he found out that Sirong was giving fruits to his fans on set and was being taken care of by all the female staff members. Nonsense. Qin Fan rebuked in a low voice. Before closing the web page, he first put Sirong's photos in his blog as well as his profile picture into his phone's photo album. Then, he called Guo Chengshang. My lord, what's a blog? This, simply put, it's a communication tool. As long as you follow the person you want to follow, you'll be able to immediately know and comment on anything that person posts. Si Huang will chat with them? Peeved, Guo Chengshang coughed and answered accurately, I won't. Master, look, Sirong has over 1 million fans now. If he replies to everyone's messages, he won't have enough time. That's why he'll only see the comments from his fans and won't chat with them. These words made the anger in Qin Fan's chest dissipate a little. However, Guo Chengshang's next sentence made him even angrier. However, we can't rule out the possibility that Sirong has taken a liking to some of the fans, so the two of them started to chat privately. Online dating is a very normal thing these days. It was originally just a casual sentence for gossip, but Guo Chengshang did not know that these words were like a thin needle that had pierced into Qin Fan's heart. It was both piercing and numbing. Give me an account number. Ah, a fan account that can enter Si Huang's eyes. Guo Chengshang, who was far away, heard these words from the other end of the phone. Before he could explain, the call was hung up. With a sullen expression, he scratched his head and muttered in distress, what the hell is this lord thinking? This kind of account can't be obtained just because you want to, stealing from someone else. According to this lord's personality, my tone will instantly expose you, okay? In the afternoon, on the set of Royal Road, Sirong finished his part without any ing. After making sure that he had no scenes for the day, he took a shower and changed into casual clothes. He sat under the chair and browsed through Weibo, looking at the stock market, and observing the performances of Guan Li and the others. He was relaxed and relaxed. She was looking at something else, but she didn't know that she had also become a beautiful scenery in the eyes of more people. The young man's leisurely appearance made everyone who saw her dispel the irritation brought by the wet and cold weather. Just looking at her was pleasing to the eye. With Director Lu's cut, today's work had been successfully completed. They were about to return to their respective hotels when Zayuan suddenly shouted, Little C, you've made such a big splash today. Aren't you going to treat everyone? Everyone stopped in their tracks with different expressions. Sure, Sirong smiled. But I'll say this first, Director Lu hasn't paid me yet, and I don't have much savings, so I can't treat everyone to a big meal. His slightly distressed smile simply melted the hearts of all the older women. Ah, I remember now, Your Majesty, have you really left Feng Hua's help and started your own business? The woman who had given Siwang the wire said. Before Sirong could say anything, Director Lu laughed and said, That's right, this kid has a big heart. He was very satisfied with Sirong's performance today and liked her even more. He placed an arm on Sirong's shoulder and said, Let's go, let's go. I know a barbecue restaurant that's affordable, delicious, and full. He had only taken a few steps when Director Lu grinned and put down his arm from Sirong's shoulder. He wasn't even as tall as Sirong, so not only did he look weird, but he also felt tired. And Zayuan watched helplessly as Sirong was surrounded by the crowd like a moon surrounded by stars. He felt that he had not managed to trick the other party and had even given Si Huang a way out, allowing her popularity in the production team of Royal Path to rise to another level. Guan Li passed by him and said coldly, Aren't you embarrassed to make things difficult for an underage girl? Even Guan Li, who had never liked to meddle in other people's business, was always speaking up for Si Rong. Hee. And Ziyuan turned his face and smiled evilly. This is called difficult? Guan Li snorted. And Xin Yuan's smile faded and he said hesitantly, it's just a blow to my self-esteem. I don't have any intention of going against him. Guan Li looked at him with a strange look. After 2 seconds, he spat out 2 words coldly. Childish. He strode away. And Ziyuan's face twisted. He had heard that word too many times today because of Si Rong, and it made him feel rather ashamed, but also a little strangely happy. In fact, being called cute by women and being doted on seemed to be an interesting experience. If An Ziyuan's manager knew what he was thinking now, he would definitely break down. Kiss, you're walking the path of the evil charm cult leader, so don't be brainwashed into an awkward little tsundere. This was a difference of a few centimeters leading to a loss of 1,000 miles. The meal lasted all the way until evening. As the host of the party, many of them had forced Si Rong to drink, especially the male staff. They didn't hate Si Rong for being surrounded and taken care of by so many women, but they were still a little aggrieved. Si Rong calmly downed each glass of wine. Her magnanimous attitude made the men feel a little embarrassed, and their little opinions of her disappeared. After a few words and a few glasses of wine, their attitude toward Si Rong had changed completely. Director Liu and Ziyuan and the others all saw the changes and marveled at Si Rong's friendliness. And Ziyuan was sure that he had once again made a wedding dress for the other party. In the end, it was Director Liu who spoke up and ended the party. You don't have to work tomorrow. If anyone gets drunk and makes a mistake by being late for work tomorrow, don't blame me for not giving you face. Si Rong was driven back to the hotel by Yushi. Seeing that Si Rong had closed his eyes ever since he got into the car, Yushi asked worriedly, are you all right? Do you need me to help you? Si Rong opened his eyes in a daze. We're here? Looking at the familiar scenery through the car window, she shook her head and said, no need. Then, he opened the door and walked toward the elevator. Seeing that her steps were not light, Yushi felt a little more at ease and thought to herself, his alcohol tolerance was really good. If Si Rong knew what he was thinking, he would definitely laugh out loud. It wasn't that she could hold her liquor well. In fact, she was still the same as in her previous life. She couldn't hold her liquor well at all. He had only learned many ways of mixing wine, and he was used to not showing a drunken look when he was drunk. He always maintained a faint sobriety. Si Rong took a shower as soon as he returned to the hotel room. The heat from the shower caused the alcohol in his body to stir, and his previously fair face gradually turned red. She lazily put on her bathrobe and walked out barefooted with a towel on her head. She did not even dry her hair. Si Rong returned to his bed and checked the time on his phone. He realized that he had 3 missed calls. Before he could think further, his phone rang again. She slowly pressed the answer button. Si Rong? What? The tone was even more leisurely than usual. It made Chin Fan, who was standing by the window in the Weiming Mountain Villa, shake his hand and almost lose his grip on his phone. He paused and remained silent for 2 seconds before asking, what are you doing? Si Rong crossed one leg and leaned lazily against the head of the bed. I'm getting ready to sleep. It was still this kind of low and lazy tone. Chin Fan sensed something and frowned. You drank. Si Rong's head was so hot that he couldn't even be bothered to move. When he heard her angry voice, he laughed for some reason. Yes, and I drank quite a bit. To Chin Fan, her attitude was like a child who had made a mistake and was still arrogant and bold enough to say that she had made a bigger mistake. She was simply someone who needed to be taught a lesson. You're not an adult yet. Yes, speak properly. You're such a busybody. Si Rong's tone was gentle and slow. He wasn't mocking her or acting coquettishly. He was simply stating a simple statement. However, when she spoke with her unique voice and lazy tone, it was simply mesmerizing. In the internet language, it meant that after hearing it, one's ears would get pregnant and become numb and itchy. Chin Fan's heart felt stuffy and itchy. He thought of the video and the Weibo message he saw during the day, and then thought of Si Rong's drinking now. He was unhappy. Have you taken a shower? Does the hotel have hot milk? Drink some to dispel the alcohol? I've washed it. There was nothing else to say. Chin Fan used one hand to pinch the window edge. Has your hair been dried? There was no response. Chin Fan was in a fit of anger. His blood once again transmitted a burning feeling, making him a little anxious. Go dry your hair and drink some milk before you sleep. After he finished speaking, what entered Chin Fan's ears was the toot-doo sound of hanging up. Chin Fan stared at the phone as if he wanted to shoot through it. This was the second time he had been hung up on today. As for the main culprit, Si Rong, he was leaning against the headboard with his eyes closed, completely unaware of how bold he had been. The phone in her hand rang again. She frowned in frustration and waited for 2 or 3 seconds before she pressed the answer button. "You're so annoying," he was still speaking softly and slowly, but there was a hint of coldness. "Pick up the phone and point it at your face." Chin Fan's voice seemed to be on speaker as it rang in Si Rong's ears. She narrowed her eyes and raised the phone to her eyes. Then, she saw Chin Fan's face in the camera. He seemed to be in a rage. His eyebrows were slightly furrowed, making his eyes look even more cold and deep. It was just a small lens of a mobile phone, but it still gave people a strong sense of oppression. It was as if a line of sight could penetrate through the screen. It was rough and sharp like a Mitsubishi Army knife, scraping on the body of the person being looked at, causing the illusion of pain on the skin. "What's the matter?" Si Rong asked coldly, not afraid. At this moment, Chin Fan did not hear what she said clearly. The image on the small phone screen changed, and the impact of the darkness turning into a beautiful face was too great for him. Perhaps it wasn't so. It wasn't like he hadn't seen beautiful women before, but the one in the video was different. The man's hair was wet, his cheeks were red, his eyes were squinted, his lips were red, and his neck was leaning against the bed. His arc was as beautiful as a swan. Her white bathrobe was also a little loose, but the camera couldn't capture what was happening below. She was so lazy that she seemed to be defenseless, and her moist eyes revealed a fretful, cold, and hostile aura. Chin Fan did not know what was wrong with him. His heart pounded against his chest a few times. A fire that was different from anger rose from his lower abdomen, burning his throat until it became hoarse. She clutched her phone tightly. The anger that she had gathered earlier had long dissipated. He was stunned for a moment before he said in a hoarse voice, "Dry your hair before you sleep. Don't catch a cold." Si Rong's expression said, "You're doing this just for this?" With an impatient expression. "Don't call again." He hung up the video call. Chin Fan was still looking at his black phone screen in a daze. After 2 to 3 seconds, he lowered his head and frowned. He stared at the hill below him and pondered about life. When the fans saw Si Rong, they immediately erupted in cheers, and, "Your Majesty, wah, he's really as handsome as the legends say. It's not a bad trip. My idol, look at me," these words. Si Rong smiled at them and greeted the crew members on the way to the set. When he reached Director Liu, the middle-aged, dark-skinned Director Liu looked at her with a meaningful gaze. "You don't have much work to do today. Go and rest." Si Huang's face was filled with surprise. Then, he heard Director Liu cough and continue, "I forgot that you're still a minor yesterday. You're not allowed to drink in the future. Our production team needs to have a good educational tradition." Si Rong's eyes flickered. He felt that these words were a little familiar, as if someone had told him this not long ago. "I understand," she nodded in agreement. "I made some soup this morning, so there's still some left," Director Liu said. "You go drink." With that, she turned around and ignored Si Rong. Si Rong took the thermal flask that the staff seemed to have prepared beforehand and thanked Director Liu for ignoring him. He then found an empty seat and sat down, not wanting to disturb Director Liu and the others from their work. Yushi, who was standing beside her, said in a low voice, "Why'd I feel like something is off?" Si Rong rubbed his fingers against the thermos. "If even you think it's weird, then it's really weird." Yexi was speechless. Si Rong opened the thermos. The amount inside was just right. It didn't look like it was leftover. If Director Liu was kind enough to take care of her, Si Rong didn't believe it. Director Liu wasn't that kind of meticulous and considerate person. The memories in her mind flickered, and a person's face suddenly appeared. Si Rong's fingers paused, and he pressed his temple with a slightly vexed expression. "What's wrong?" Si Rong shook his head. "If you're free for now, tutor me." As Si Rong's manager and tutor, Yexi would always carry the textbooks that Si Rong wanted to study with him. As soon as she opened her mouth, he sat down opposite her and listed out the courses he would take to enter Jinghua University in the future. Yexi was undoubtedly a top student. If it wasn't for his worry about his mother and sister, as well as his family problems, he would have no problem getting into Jinghua University. However, during this period of teaching Si Rong, Yushi's former pride had almost faded away. This fellow's learning ability was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. The staff around them knew that Si-rong wasn't just studying for show, so they didn't disturb him. For 3 consecutive days, Si-rong's days were free and full. As the second male lead who ran through the entire show, she had no more scenes, and as long as she didn't do bad takes, she would always have a lot of free time. The extra time was used to make up for lessons, browse Weibo, look at the stock market, and do some secret work. One day, she even had dinner with Grandma Yu. It was a very practical time. Si-rong had just left the set and was about to take a car back to the hotel when he saw an army green Hummer parked not far away. The man in the car also noticed her. He pushed the door open and stared at her in silence. Yushi was shocked. Si-rong had already walked over and said to him, "You can go back first." As he watched Si-rong get into the Hummer, Yushi moved his lips and swallowed his words of, "Come back early." As the military green Hummer drove out of the garage, Si-rong, who was sitting in the passenger seat, asked, "Where to?" Chin Fan did not turn around to look at her and said calmly, "Let's eat dinner." About 10 minutes later, the Hummer stopped in the Shang Garden garage. Si-rong got out of the car and followed Chin Fan. Chin Fan had already booked a private room. The two of them sat opposite each other. The waiter came to confirm that the dishes were served, and after getting Chin Fan's response, he pushed the door open and went out. When the dishes were served, Chin Fan handed Si-rong a stack of documents. Si-rong took it, opened it, and saw what he wanted to see. A smile appeared in his eyes. He raised his head and smiled at Chin Fan. "Thank you. This meal is on me." "No need." Chin Fan's face was expressionless. "This was what I promised you in the beginning." Si Huang raised his eyebrows and didn't argue with him. At this moment, someone knocked on the door and a few people came in with dishes. Si-rong looked at the bottle of wine in someone's hand and raised an eyebrow. He didn't say anything when he saw the person put down the glass for him. Chin Fan's eyebrows were raised. "Give him tea." The waiter who was setting up the cups paused for a moment and listened to Chin Fan's instructions. After a short while, the waiters left quietly. Si-rong looked at the sumptuous dishes on the table and asked Chin Fan, "You invited someone else?" Chin Fan raised his head and glanced at her. "Just the two of us." Si Huang narrowed his eyes. It was a little strange for 2 people to have such a sumptuous meal. "Let's eat." After Chin Fan finished speaking, he started to eat by himself. Si-rong looked at him for 2 seconds before picking up his chopsticks as well. The two of them ate in silence. Si-rong ate a few mouthfuls of every dish on the table. She put down her chopsticks and picked up her teacup. Chin Fan, who was sitting opposite her, also picked up his wineglass. Si Huang's eyes flickered and he lifted the teacup to signal to him. Chin Fan's expression was still cold, but the pressure in his eyes had clearly weakened a little. He suddenly stood up and strode over to Si-rong's side. The distance between the two of them decreased from a meter to a point where they could touch each other just by extending their hands. Just like that, he clinked his glass against Si-rong's teacup and downed the wine in one go. Si-rong sipped his tea indifferently and asked, "What happened?" His reaction today was a little abnormal. Chin Fan put down his wine cup. "I will be going out for a while." Si Huang raised his eyebrows. "A long time?" "Not long if everything goes well." "Okay, have a safe journey, and I wish you success." The two of them didn't speak for a long time. To be more precise, Chin Fan was silent, and Si-rong didn't take the initiative to start a topic. Chin Fan poured another glass of wine and drank it all. He stared at Si-rong and suddenly said, "If you call me big brother, I'll really treat you like a younger brother." Si-rong didn't understand the meaning of his words for a moment. Chin Fan continued, "When I'm not around, call me if you need anything. It's the one on your phone." As for the content of Chin Fan's work, Si-rong could roughly guess it based on what he had heard in his previous life. His job was very secretive, and he definitely couldn't answer calls from outside, but he didn't force it at all. Si-rong didn't answer, and his expression didn't change. Chin Fan frowned. "Answer me." Si-rong didn't know when it had happened, but he was no longer afraid or cautious of his cold face. He laughed casually and said, "I know." A hint of helplessness flashed in Chin Fan's eyes. This child's attitude was clearly very perfunctory. He did not have the habit of sticking his warm face to someone's cold ass, but he was still worried about this bad boy. "In the future, don't drink alcohol." You have to dry your hair before you sleep. You are still growing. Don't take this matter lightly just because you are young. At the thought of Sirong's job, he added, if you really can't escape the social events, just show some courtesy. If anyone dares to force you to drink, you don't have to give them any face. Just bring out old iron and the others. If you can't do it, call me. All right, he said. Sirong's reaction was still calm, so Chin Fan didn't know if she had really taken it in or if it had gone in one ear and out the other. But even so, Chin Fan still drank the wine mouthful by mouthful. He stared at her and reminded her over and over again, your body is your capital. Don't ruin it for work. Also, when I'm not around, don't commit crimes in the middle of the night again. You're also not allowed to go to places like nightclubs. If you're really interested, I'll take you there in the future. Sirong didn't try to persuade him to drink. Instead, he looked at him indifferently and didn't avoid his gaze. So you're saying that I can commit the crime in the middle of the night if you're around? Chin Fan's eyes turned sharp. Don't think about such nonsense. The alcohol didn't get on his face, but his eyes were getting deeper and deeper, and his breath reeked of alcohol. Sirong watched as Chin Fan finished the entire bottle of wine and sighed at his alcohol tolerance. He then saw Chin Fan reach out and pick up the teacup in front of him. Before Sirong could stop him, Chin Fan had already finished the tea in her teacup. She paused. Are you drunk? It's not that heavy. Chin Fan's tone was indeed not mixed. Sirong didn't believe that he was completely fine. He didn't mention the teacup. Go back after you're done eating. Let's go, he said. Chin Fan stood up. She reached out to Sirong and stood still. Sirong looked at him, baffled. The tall man put on a cold emperor's face and said in a dignified tone, give me a hand. Sirong was speechless. She ignored him and took 2 steps forward. When she turned back, she saw that the man was still standing there and staring at her with his dark and rough eyes. It was too early for her to be at ease when she believed that he wasn't drunk and wouldn't trouble anyone. Sirong sighed in his heart. After 2 seconds of silence, he turned around and said, I'll lend you my shoulder. If you dare to move, hey. The corners of Chin Fan's mouth lifted and he said in a low voice, don't move. Si Huang tilted his ears and cast a sidelong glance at him. He allowed him to place one of his arms on his shoulder and supported his tall figure, which was half a head taller than him, as they walked out. Sirong had just stepped out of the elevator and was walking toward the garage when he stopped in his tracks. His pupils shrank when he saw the group of people walking toward him. Other than Chin Fan, who had a hand on her shoulder, no one else had noticed the change in this instant. Chin Fan lowered his head to look at the young man beside him, and his heart skipped a beat. His fair and exquisite face still did not have any expression, but something had obviously changed. She used to be calm and elegant, but now her eyes were clear without a trace of gloominess. Her red lips and white teeth were like a greenhouse flower that had been carefully cared for. She was beautiful and exquisite without shrewdness or personality. This kind of greenhouse flower would not attract attention from others. However, Sirong's appearance made Chin Fan's body and mind go soft. He thought of a kind of pure creature called an angel. He heard the sound of footsteps and forced his gaze away from Sirong. He then saw the man who was approaching him. The man in front of her was tall and slender. He was wearing a black suit of sportswear. At first glance, he was nearly 1.8 meters tall, just right. His black hair was a little long, and it wasn't too messy even though it wasn't carefully combed. It covered his eyes. His straight nose, light-colored lips, and sharp chin were enough to show that he was quite good-looking. He also saw Sirong and his wife. When his gaze swept past Sirong, it was as if a cold wind had swept through the entire world. The cold wind blew past without stopping for even a second. When she saw Chin Fan's face clearly, she stopped in her tracks. Godfather Chin. His voice was as cold as his temperament, as if he was an emotionless robot. Chin Fan also recognized Do Wenqing and immediately thought of the change in the child beside him. It must have been because of this person. His eyes darkened. Get lost. The expressions of the people behind Do Wenqing changed when they heard his cold and impolite shout. Someone took a step forward but was intimidated by Do Wenqing's gaze. He didn't seem to care about Chin Fan's coldness at all. He turned his body to the side to make way. Godfather Chin, please. Chin Fan's large hand pinched Sirong's shoulder. Sirong blinked his eyes as if he had suddenly come to a realization and continued to support Chin Fan as they walked. When he walked past Do Wenqing, Si Rong felt her gaze sweep across him like an X-ray scan. Si Rong helped Qin Fan to the passenger seat and got into the driver's seat. Qin Fan saw that his expression had returned to normal and asked, "How did you meet Do Wenqing?" Si Rong reached out to him. "Give me the car keys." Qin Fan raised his lower body and revealed his pocket. "Take it yourself." Si Rong was speechless. When Qin Fan saw her silent appearance, he frowned and said with an impatient tone, "Why are you being so hesitant?" Si Rong tugged at the corner of his mouth and calmly reached into Qin Fan's pocket. She naturally grabbed the car keys in her hand. This time, it was Qin Fan who did not speak for a long time, and his body was half stiff. She didn't touch anything, and she couldn't feel any temperature through the layer of cloth, but she watched as the white fingers reached into her pocket and were so close to her crotch. Si Rong, who was driving, looked at the man in the passenger seat in surprise. "What's wrong?" Qin Fan's forehead had turned red from his own slap. He didn't even look at Si Rong as he said, "It's nothing." Then, she realized that Si Rong was driving in the direction of Weiming Mountain. She continued, "Let's go to your hotel first, then I'll drive back by myself." "Are you sure you can still drive?" "Yes, I can." Si Rong didn't try to persuade him any further and turned at the next intersection. 10 minutes later, she entered the underground parking lot of the hotel. When she was about to get out of the car, she was suddenly pulled back by Qin Fan. Si Rong furrowed his brows slightly. He thought that the other party would let go after he struggled, but he didn't expect him to still hold on to him tightly. She raised her head and looked at Qin Fan unhappily. Qin Fan was also staring at her. 2 seconds later, Si Rong couldn't tell if he was upset or helpless. "What are you trying to say?" Qin Fan pursed his lips and coldly warned, "In the future, don't get too close to men. You'll easily get into trouble and danger with your appearance." Si Huang's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He carefully examined Qin Fan's expression and confirmed that he had not discovered his true identity. Instead, he treated him as a real man and even said such words to him. This made him seem particularly interesting. "Also, don't look at all these random things. A man should act like a man." "All right," he said. Si Rong's tone was gentle as he smiled. "You can let go now." Qin Fan stared at her and then let go of her hand decisively. Si Rong turned around to leave. He had only taken 2 steps when he heard the man's voice again. "Remember to call if you need anything. Don't get bullied." Si Huang sighed and turned around. He looked up at the man in the car not far away. "Have you been sleeping well recently?" Qin Fan did not expect her to mention this and was stunned on the spot. Si Rong guessed the answer. When he thought about how this person was on a mission and how much more dangerous it would be if he continued to suffer from insomnia and explosive tendencies, she couldn't just leave him be, no matter what the reason was. Wu Bao's long-lost voice suddenly appeared in his mind. "If your majesty really wants to help me, hurry up and give me a kiss. I can guarantee that he will be in good health for 10 days to half a month." "What's wrong with this little guy recently? He's been offline for a long time, and once he's online, he's always acting weird." Si Rong laughed and ignored Wu Bao's suggestion. He continued to ask Qin Fan, "Was my song useful the last time?" Qin Fan, "Yes. Did you keep it?" Si Rong asked. Qin Fan's expression explained everything. Si Rong said indifferently, "I'll record your voice and send you a file when we get back." Qin Fan instantly felt his entire body warm up. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. "Okay." This time, Si Rong didn't stay any longer and walked all the way back to his hotel room. The 5 treasures were still jumping around in her mind. Recording is so troublesome. It's a waste of time to listen to it every time. How can we solve everything one by one? It's good for you, me, and everyone. "What's on your mind?" Si Rong asked. "What bad idea? I'm clearly helping you, Your Majesty. In order not to disturb you from earning faith points, I will be obedient." Si Rong laughed. "You've always been so arrogant. It's obvious that something's wrong when you suddenly say, I. Your friend Wu Bao is now offline. Please leave a message if you need anything." Si Rong chuckled and ignored the 5 treasures. He took a shower, turned on his laptop, and started working on his new company. The company she started was called Wind Emperor Entertainment. First, when he saw his ID, he didn't think about the company's name. Secondly, Si Jian's company was called Fenghua Entertainment, and Emperor Wind Entertainment didn't seem to fit his image. The document that Chin Fan gave her today was the proof that Wind Emperor Entertainment had been approved. He had been busy with work matters at the company until a little late last night. After returning from his morning exercise, Si Rong still looked a little tired. Yushi did not want to disturb her, but he had to inform her of the news he had just received. Take a look at this before you go to the set. Yushi handed the tablet in his hands to Si Rong. Si Rong narrowed his eyes and glanced at the headline on the tablet. New actor Si Rong from Royal Path brought money to join the production team to bully others. Arrogant and despotic, the king of the entertainment industry has appeared, but he's actually a newcomer. Where are the best actors and best actresses going? Si Rong has been hosting the director, Elder Tai, and the mysterious man for the past few days. Arm around each other's shoulders. Their relationship is not ordinary. These entertainment reports were also interesting. Previously, no one made a sound, but within a day, they all tacitly came out together. Du Chang just called me, saying that there are already reporters gathered at the set. Yushi saw that she had finished reading and asked, "What do you think, if you're not going to show yourself and hand it to me, or?" "You don't understand the situation here. I'll handle it myself." Si Huang slowly swiped the tablet and saw a few blurry photos. They were the photos of her treating director Liu and the others, as well as Grandma Yu and the others to dinner a few days ago, and also the photos of her helping Chin Fan out of Shang Garden yesterday. Thinking back to yesterday, it was probably because his encounter with Do Wenqing was too unexpected that he did not notice that there were hidden paparazzi secretly taking photos. Fortunately, Chin Fan's face wasn't secretly photographed. Only his tall and strong body could be seen in the blurriness. Those who weren't familiar with him would definitely not be able to recognize who this person was. As for the fact that she was arrogant and despotic, it was because of a Weibo post by Yan Yan. She expressed that she had been bullied by Si Rong in the crew and was driven out of the cast of Royal Path by power. So pitiful. Si Rong's slender fingers landed on Yan Yan's photo on the screen. He sounded pitiful, but there was no sympathy in his tone. You still don't know that you're already a pawn in someone else's hands. If you take another blow, you won't have a chance to make a comeback. She knew this industry too well. Once you lost the halo of a celebrity and your reputation was completely ruined, the final result would be that you would be hidden by the company, and then the company would dig out your last bit of value selling your body for a low price. Yexi looked at her in confusion, not understanding the meaning of her words. When the two of them arrived at the set, even though Yushi was prepared, it was still embarrassed by the ferocious reporters. On the other hand, Si Rong got out of the car with a calm expression. Facing the reporters who were pushing each other forward, he said calmly, "I'm not running." "You don't have to be in a hurry, sir, please do not push the woman in front of you." The male reporter's face stiffened, and he didn't dare to move anymore under the gazes of everyone around him. As for the female reporter that he had pushed aside earlier, she looked at Si Rong gratefully and gripped the microphone in her hand tightly. She secretly told herself not to ask any questions that would put Si Rong in a difficult position later. Si Rong's gentlemanly demeanor won the favor of most female reporters, while the male reporters rejected him. "I will only answer 4 questions. Please leave after you're done and don't affect the progress of the crew." Si Huang stood in front of the reporters, his tone gentle and elegant, without any timidity. Under her influence, Yushi also calmed down and carefully observed Si Rong's next reaction to deal with such situations in the future. "Ha, do you really think you're the emperor?" A tall and thin man with a square face sneered. Si Rong lowered his gaze to look at him. "Not to you, but to my knight's eyes, I am." No one had expected such an answer from him, and the scene fell silent for a moment. "That's the first question," Si Rong said. "You have 3 more chances to ask. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're the young master of Fenghua. You can't have a smooth journey in the entertainment industry just because you have a strong background." It was still the same tall, thin, square-faced man who mocked maliciously. Si Rong was well aware that the entertainment industry wasn't entirely dependent on one's background. The news agencies that manipulated public opinion were the real tyrants. Countless celebrities and idols had been toyed around by them and destroyed. As the main culprits, they were still feeling smug, thinking that they could control the usually high and mighty jade girls and male idols with a single pen and control the ups and downs of the entire entertainment industry. Si Rong glanced at the other reporters indifferently. Are you sure you want me to continue answering his questions? I've said that you only have 3 chances to ask questions. The tall, skinny, square-faced man was furious. The other reporters couldn't bear to see him in the limelight alone, so they threw questions at him one after another, but the results were too messy and he couldn't hear what he said. The reporters discussed with each other for a while and summarized a few questions for the reporters from the largest news agencies to ask. It's been said that you're arrogant and domineering, and that you're using your status as the young master of Fenghua Entertainment to cheat on your idol, Yan Yan. She didn't want to do it, so you used your power to kick Yan Yan out of the production team of Royal Road. Si Huang raised his brows and smiled at the male reporter who had asked him a question. You think I'm interested in Yan Yan's looks? From the moment she got out of the car, her expression had been indifferent, and her eyelids were half closed lazily. Now that she opened her eyes and smiled, she was like a peach flower welcoming the spring breeze. Her beauty made the male reporter stunned for a moment, and an answer instinctively surfaced in his mind. How could he be interested? And why did Yan Yan lose her role and get kicked out of the Royal Road crew? It's because she's not good enough. No matter what, she's in the same company as you. Don't you think you're going too far? Someone interrupted. Si Rong glanced at the camera that was facing him, and a sharp glint appeared in his eyes, making her beautiful and delicate features look even more flamboyant and eye-catching. I'll say it again. I'm not signed with Fenghua Entertainment, but the company I founded, Wind Emperor Entertainment. I'm not from the same school as Yan Yan at all. After a pause, he said, this is the 3rd question. You still have one last chance. The latter sentence forced back the words that were about to come out of their mouths. In the end, the one who asked the last question was a female reporter. She put on an iron face and pressed Si Rong without holding back. According to the photos that have been exposed over the past few days, you have a close relationship with the director and the old Thai couple, who are behind the production team of Royal Road. You have the intention of currying favor with them. This can't help but make people suspect that you joined the crew through your connections. Si Rong chuckled. You guys don't have to be too envious. The female reporter was stunned. The others weren't any better. Si Rong. Regarding the issue of getting into the team through connections. There's already been a case before this. I'm sure you all know the outcome. However, you guys are still holding on to this problem, so just let it be. Since you know that I joined the group through connections, it's impossible to kick me out, so I won't answer this question again in the future. Looking at the dumbstruck faces in front of her, she smiled gently and gracefully. As someone who got in through connections, I'm sure you're all very curious about my acting skills. Please look forward to the broadcast of Royal Road after the filming is completed and contribute to our ratings. Thank you. The reporters were speechless. This guy didn't play his cards and answer according to common sense at all. A group of female reporters followed Si Rong's face, reminiscing about his wild, domineering, and gentlemanly style. Did he have to be so handsome? Do you have to be so arrogant? This was simply no. Si Rong led Yushi to the set. On the way, a reporter who had snapped out of his daze wanted to stop her, but Si Rong accidentally tripped her. The square-faced reporter glared at her angrily. Si Huang bent down and reached out to him. How could you be so careless? Then, he turned his head and smiled jokingly at the other reporters. 4 questions are enough for you to use your writing skills, so don't push your luck. I have a strong background. The reporters were speechless. The square-faced reporter on the ground didn't grab Si Rong's hand. Instead, he slapped it away with force and stood up with a cold snort. Si Rong seemed to have predicted that he would do this. He pulled back his hand before he was hit and left without looking back. The male reporter was stunned and his face turned pale. The video of the reporters surrounding Si Rong made the headlines. Si Rong's fame and popularity skyrocketed, and this scene was also seen by countless people. All the major news agencies, entertainment gossip news agencies had their own articles, criticizing Si Rong for being too arrogant as a newcomer, for not respecting reporters, for maliciously hitting them, and for having problems with his character. As soon as the negative news was released, the internet was filled with insults directed at Si Rong. Naturally, there were also fans who were on his side. In Washing Art School, Si Hua gripped his tablet tightly as he watched the high-spirited Si Rong in the video. He bit his lips so hard that they almost bled. He only smiled when he saw the comments insulting Si Rong. In the Fenghua Entertainment Company building, Si Jian was reading the news report expressionlessly. When Sirong mentioned Wind Emperor Entertainment in the video, his eyes were filled with anger. Grandpa Chin and his wife were sitting together with Grandma Yu and her husband in the villa on Weiming Mountain. "Your Majesty is so handsome." Grandma Yu laughed out loud. "I shouldn't have been so nice to these flies." When she saw the host's malicious assessment of Sirong, she immediately stood up in anger. "How dare you bully little Phoenix without even asking if I would agree? Old man, give little Lu a call and kill these flies." Elder Tai shook his head helplessly and pulled her back to her seat. "There's no rush. Can't you see that Xiaoling is handling it with ease? This storm won't defeat him, it'll only let him ride the wind and waves to stand higher. Little Phoenix is still so young. You can't ignore the gentleness under his strong will just because he's doing well." Grandma Yu snorted. "Wait a minute, I'll give him a call and nag him." Old Tai couldn't stop him. At the North Star Hotel in Yang City, Liang Chai knocked on the door of a suite, then swiped his card and entered. He saw his boss sitting on the sofa, watching TV intently. "Second master, this is the information you wanted." Chai Liang handed the document he had just received to Do Wenqing. Do Wenqing did not even raise his head, put it on the table. Chai Liang did as he was told, and then he heard his voice again. "Look at this man, have you seen him before?" Liang Chai raised his head and looked at the HD TV in front of him. On the screen was a young man, but his aura was not something that the young man could compare to. Even among the young men, there were few who could suppress him. In particular, his face was very good-looking. It was delicate but not weak, handsome but not too hard. As long as one saw him once, they would never forget him, except for his boss, who had face blindness. Liang Chai stared at the arrogant and domineering young man on TV, who was calm and indifferent in front of the reporters. He couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise. "This is the child who was with Master Qin at Shang Garden 2 days ago." Do Wenqing still had doubts in her eyes. Shang Garden? Liang Chai knew that not only did his boss have face blindness, but he would also instinctively ignore things like greenhouse flowers, little rabbits, velvet flowers, and other non-aggressive creatures, leaving no trace in his mind. Liang Chai thought back to Sirong's harmless appearance 2 days ago. He felt that it was already impressive enough for second young master to ask if he had seen him before. 2 days ago, at 7 p.m., at the elevator in Shangyuan's parking lot. Godfather Qin is drunk and he's being supported by this child. After listening to Chai Liang's detailed explanation, Do Wenqing finally remembered a vague figure. He was about this tall, about this figure, and about this face, but his aura was completely different. He was harmless to the point that he didn't have the slightest bit of aggression, and he wasn't noticeable at all. If someone knew what Do Wenqing was thinking, they would definitely tell him that it was only the freak that wasn't noticeable. "Was he like this at that time?" Do Wenqing asked in a cold, mechanical voice. "No," Liang Chai said. Ripples of emotion appeared in Do Wenqing's inorganic eyes. Sirong, who knew nothing about all this, continued on with her usual routine. Recently, the atmosphere in the production crew had been a little strange. Everyone looked at Sirong with a mixture of love and complications. From time to time, someone would walk past Sirong and give him words of encouragement and comfort. Sirong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had repeatedly expressed that he was really fine, but they still didn't have any intention of holding back, so he didn't explain any further. What Sirong didn't know was that most of the staff members were trying to find an opportunity to get close to her by using the excuse of comforting her. They seemed to have a good relationship usually, but Sirong's aura was too strong, and there were too few opportunities for her to care about her up close. He couldn't possibly do things like serving her tea more than a few times a day, could he? "You're really not worried at all?" While they were eating, Director Lu sized Sirong up. Sirong put down the lunchbox and shook his head. Director Lu couldn't find a trace of pretense on her face and sighed in his heart. A monster. On the surface, he curled his lips. Boring. She walked away with her head held high. Only then did Sirong start eating. Your Majesty, you're simply too awesome. There are so many people scolding you, but the number of haters didn't increase by much. Little Pink is like a rocket. Recently, the 5 treasures had been very active. It turns out that being arrogant can also be likable. Young Master Wuju was really too stupid in the past. Your Majesty is still the best. Why don't you be more arrogant, Your Majesty? Sirong ate slowly without a word. This was the second reason why she was not worried. With the 5 treasures as a cheating device, she understood that no matter how badly she was scolded on the internet, there were very few people who really hated her. On the contrary, because of this exposure, more people became her fans. Actually, this was within C. Rong's expectations. The people on the internet weren't fools. They would completely believe the entertainment news. They would look up the information themselves and have their own opinions. The waves of insults were hurtful, but it was just a part of human nature. She would get involved whenever someone insulted her, and after venting her boredom, she would forget about it. How could she really hate C. Rong, someone she had never met before? C. Rong could clearly see that his calm and composed appearance, in the eyes of others, became a symbol of stability and strength. It made the women excitedly exclaim in their hearts that His Majesty was amazing, but at the same time, they also felt pity for him. A group called His Majesty's Embroidered Uniform Guard had already been established on the internet. Unlike the Night Order, which appeared to be facing outsiders, they were operating in the dark, putting on small disguises and going around to attack the masses who were against C. Rong. This trend spread so widely that Director Liu and the others were dumbfounded. A few days later, he patted C. Rong's shoulder and said earnestly, "Kid, you're red." It wasn't that C. Rong wasn't popular before, but he wasn't enough to enter the eyes of people like Director Liu. Who would have thought that in less than half a month, C. Rong would monopolize the headlines of several major entertainment news and spread them all over the internet? Even some of the more famous seniors could not catch up to her. If Director Liu didn't know the truth, he would have suspected that Fenghua Entertainment Company was trying to create hype for the eldest young master. This red method really can't be copied so easily. Director Liu stared at C. Rong as if he was a monster. "I don't know where you got the mental fortitude to remain so calm in the face of public opinion." More importantly, no one else was as old as C. Rong. No one at her age had her looks, and no one with her looks would have her acting skills, let alone the calmness she displayed in front of the entertainment reporters. It was simply a one-man show, and she had fully displayed her charm. It felt great. C. Rong shook his head. "This kind of red is fake." The corner of Director Liu's mouth twitched, and he swallowed the warning he was about to say. "Are you really only 16 years old?" C. Rong smiled. "I'll be 17 in a few months." Director Liu no longer commented on her age. "Since you yourself know that this kind of fame is not real and that you will be consigned to eternal damnation if you are not careful, I won't say anything more. You should think about it yourself." C. Rong agreed. It was only 7 o'clock in the afternoon when he returned to the hotel after finishing his work that day when Yushi came to him. "These are the recent job applications. Do you want to pick one or two?" Director Liu's claim that Si Huang had become famous was not a lie. Recently, Yexi had received many phone calls and fax requests for Si Rong to be a spokesperson or star in a movie. Si Rong took the 4 small notebooks from her. "Just this much?" Yushi shook his head. "No, but I chose one first." Seeing that Si Rong was looking at him without saying a word, he lowered his voice and said, "Other than these 4, I don't think there's any benefit in accepting the other offers. It'll only lower your value. Do you need to personally examine it again?" "No need, I'll have to trouble you again in the future," Si Rong said with a smile. Yushi also revealed a relaxed smile, his eyes shining. Out of the 4 small booklets, 3 were scripts, and 1 was an advertisement. Out of the 3 scripts, 2 were idol dramas and 1 was a micro-movie. The advertisement was for a well-known brand, Japan. This brand specialized in the style of clothing for teenagers between the ages of 16 and 25. The previous spokesperson was a popular young man in China, Le Xian. Si Rong took a few glances, then took out 2 books and handed them to Yushi. "You'd rather choose this micro-movie than an idol drama with a slightly famous director?" Yushi asked in surprise. Si Rong, "Since you've picked out this micro-movie that's not that famous for me, I'm sure you've seen its value." "You're sure?" Si Rong placed the remaining 2 idol drama scripts on the table at the side and took a sip of milk. Yushi understood what she meant. "Actually, I chose this micro-movie not only because I thought it was interesting, but also because the person who wrote it was my neighbor." "Shu Wanjun?" Si Rong raised his head. "Yes," Yushi replied. "What's wrong?" "It's nothing," Si Rong replied. It turned out that this was the reason why Shu Wanjun had a good relationship with Yexi in his previous life. In his previous life, the 2 of them had kept their mouths shut and did not spread this story. After Yushi was sure that Si Rong's intentions would not change, he took the script back to his room and called Shu Wanjun to report the good news. As the night grew darker, it was already 8:30 p.m. when Si Rong was done with the stock market and company matters. She got up to pour herself another glass of milk and came back to check her Weibo. During this period of time, the number of fans on her Weibo had been increasing. At a glance, she found that there were 99 red circles in the fan section. She didn't open it and naturally missed a big V with the ID, Wutong waiting for you to rest. Far away in a military area, the tall man's upper body was bare and he was wearing loose gray pants. He was sitting cross-legged on the bed. He must have just taken a shower, as the crystal-clear water droplets were stained with his honey-colored skin. His six-pack abs, sexy mermaid lines, and strong biceps were a combination of strength and beauty. The lines were definitely not exaggerated by the gym instructor's deliberate use of external objects, but the beauty formed by long-term good habits and exercise. Just looking at his figure was enough to make women scream and want to jump on him. Not to mention the man's handsome and cold face. His wet hair was casually pushed to the back, revealing his furrowed eyebrows that seemed to be a little troubled. Chin Fan stared at Si Rong's Weibo address on his phone and secretly used the newly obtained Big V's Wutong waiting for you to rest to leave a private message for Si Rong. Waiting for you to rest Wutong. Hello, I believe in your innocence. Don't be defeated by public opinion. I will always be watching you. This private message was like a stone sinking into the sea, and he did not get any response. Chin Fan's heart was filled with an indescribable sense of loss, but he also heaved a sigh of relief. He logged out of the V-Post address and went to the folders saved on his phone. Teach you how to capture a man's heart. Acting cute is a profound knowledge. Emoji makes you cuter. A complete collection of internet phrases. These were all transferred to him by Guo Chengshang, together with the Big V. Guo Chengshang was also the one who had chosen the ID of the VIP account. In his words, it was, "My lord, if you want your idol to notice you in the sea of fans, you need a name full of meaning. Look at this, it's so good, it has poetic and artistic meaning, literary and artistic style, love and protection, and the meaning of a secret love. That's all I can do. Everything else will depend on your own efforts. Oh right, remember to send more emojis when you message Prince Charming. This will help you hide deeper and increase the chances of Prince Charming noticing you." Chin Fan first ignored the document, "Teach you how to capture a man's heart," and scolded Guo Chengshang in his heart for not doing his job well. His finger touched the delete button but hesitated halfway, and finally left its corpse behind. Since he had a bit of free time, Chin Fan decided to read the next ebook. Si Rong didn't check the details of new fans, but he would always double-check the comments and private messages on Weibo. Just as she scanned through the comments and was about to read her private message, there was an urgent knock on the door. Yushi's anxious and flustered face appeared outside the door. "See, the deputy, I want to go back to City H, I want it now, I'm sorry, I'll explain it to you later." He turned around and left after he finished speaking in a hurry. "Stop right there," Si Rong ordered in a low voice. Yushi froze and turned around. Si Rong asked calmly, "What happened?" Yushin's eyes were red from anxiety. "Something happened at home. My mother and Lingling were taken away." Si Rong's eyes turned cold as he looked at him for a second. "Wait here." Then, no matter what Yushi wanted to say, he turned around and went back to his room to change his clothes. 3 or 4 minutes later, Si Rong had changed into a low-key sportswear and walked out with a shoulder bag. He said to Yushin, who was still in a daze, "Let's go," he said. The polite words from Yushi's throat could no longer be said. In the car, the moment Si Rong got into the driver's seat, he said to Yushin, "Fasten your seatbelt and hold on tight." Yushi obediently finished and turned around to say something to Si Rong. However, the car pulled him back so quickly that his body hit the back of the car, and he lost his breath. The wheels of the car rubbed against the ground, and then it sped out at an extremely high speed. Yexi was speechless. Si Huang had chosen a road with fewer people. The price of speeding was being photographed by traffic light surveillance cameras several times, which made Yushi, who was studying law, want to say something but stop. She turned her head to look at Si Rong's calm side profile and her initially panicked mood gradually calmed down. Si Rong's voice rang out, "There aren't many people on this road. If everything goes well, we can reach City H a few hours earlier." Yushi took deep breath and said, "Thank you, Si Rong." After he calmed down, he suddenly realized that if he was alone, he would have to take many detours in that state. Si Rong shook his head. However, the heavens did not care about them. The sudden appearance of colorful lights and the sound of people in front of them made Yushi dazed. Si Rong's eyes paused. That's only if there aren't any street racers. Yushi laughed bitterly and was speechless. He watched helplessly as a few fashionably dressed men walked out of the crowd in front of him and tried to stop a car. He had thought that Si Rong would stop, but who knew that it accelerated. The loud sound of the accelerator frightened the men who were blocking the car. They instinctively jumped away and watched the cheap silver-gray car speed away. They cursed angrily. "Are you crazy? I wonder whose territory this is?" He then shouted into the walkie-talkie, "Seventh Master. A bug has run in." There was another silver-gray sports car parked on the road, but it was different from the low-profile gray of the Si Rong family's car. From the color to the design of the car, it was full of insolent, high-profile, and gorgeous. In the driver's seat of the sports car, a young man with headphones cursed unhappily, "You guys eat shit. Don't you know how to stop me? We tried to stop it, but it's just a crazy bug. It didn't stop and accelerated. I think it's just looking for death. Shut your dog mouth and stop bothering me." Duan Chijo pulled off his headphones, opened the door of his sports car, and got out. He walked to a royal blue sports car not far behind him. The car had hit the stone wall on the inside of the road, and the front of the car was still smoking. Dong dong dong. Duan Kasho knocked on the window of the blue sports car. The corners of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. He asked calmly, "Young Master Zhang? Was he asleep? Why don't you show your face?" After not hearing any sound for a long time, Duan Chijo's eyes were filled with malice. He climbed onto the damaged head of the blue sports car with a smile and squatted down. He had a cigarette in his mouth, but he didn't smoke it. His eyes were staring at the road. He finished his cigarette and was about to light another one when he finally heard the sound of an engine. At that moment, his eyes burst out with the light of a hungry wolf pouncing on its prey. The silver-gray family car sped past them at a speed of at least 180 miles per hour. Duan Chijo excitedly jumped out of the blue sports car and entered his own. In an instant, he accelerated and chased after the car in front of him. A family car couldn't outrun a branded sports car. When the silver-gray sports car appeared in the rearview mirror, Si Rong's brows furrowed. His eyes narrowed, and his hands and legs that were holding the steering wheel began to move rapidly. "Sit tight," he did not forget to remind Yushi. Yushi instinctively grabbed onto the handle, then felt the car drift violently. A silver-gray luxury sports car passed by them. Yushi was stunned for a moment, then his face turned cold. "He's sick." Judging from the distance between them, if Si Rong hadn't changed directions so quickly, the sports car would have hit them. One could imagine the result of $1 million sports car colliding with a $100,000 car. The sports car that had rushed to the front braked and turned back. The car lights flickered, as if it was a sign of the gray wolf's provocation and hunting. "Si Rong, should we get out of the car?" Yushi had never seen such a formation before, but he knew that some people could not be understood with common sense. "Where's the lock?" Si Rong asked. Yushi looked around and then handed it to her from behind. Si Rong placed it on his lap and rolled down the window. Yushi did not understand what she meant. At this moment, the sports car in front started up. Yushi's pupils contracted. It was too late to get out of the car now. He looked at Si Rong. Coincidentally, he felt the speed of the car increase in an instant. A gust of wind gushed in from the open window, blowing Si Rong's hair up. His fair face was expressionless, and the beauty of the combination of movement and silence made Yushi momentarily dazed. If the situation wasn't suitable, he really wanted to take a picture of Si Rong in this state. It would definitely cause a group of fans to scream again. In the few seconds that he was distracted, the two cars had already approached. Yushi was also awakened by the glaring high beam in front of it. Its eyes squinted uncomfortably, and its expression was angry and nervous. The dull sound and the violent movement of the car caused Yushi to be in chaos. Duan Chijo, who was in the sports car, looked surprised. The other party had actually dodged it again, and he was using this low-quality car. When the sports car and the sedan car brushed past each other, he turned his head sideways to look at Si Rong through the window with an evil and provocative expression. He thought, he might be able to avoid them once or twice, but I don't believe that he can avoid them a third time. With the performance of his car, it'll be easy for him to catch up with them. However, before he could see Sirong's face clearly, he was overwhelmed by a sudden burst of yellow. Thump pa kacha 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 and quat. The car window was suddenly broken, and fragments flew in the air. Duan Chijo instinctively stepped on the brakes. Duan Chijo cursed angrily. His face and half of his body were in so much pain that he died. Come out. His deep and charming voice was clear and cold in the autumn night, so pleasant that it made Duan Chijo shiver. He jerked his head up and was shocked by the face that entered the depths of his eyes. The man's hair was unkempt, and his fair face could be seen clearly in the night. His eyes under his slanted eyebrows were like two cool springs. His expressionless face and the threatening aura he exuded made him look not like ice iron, but cold and demonic. Duan Kashu's Adam's apple bobbed. The eyebrows of the tall teenager outside twitched slightly. You don't understand human language? F***CK. This was a high-quality romantic encounter. Duan Chijo roared in his heart and regretted that he hadn't seen the person clearly before starting to fight. He raised his head and was about to smile at the people outside. Dong, the yellow car door was locked, and a dent was made in the door. Duan Chijo's smiling face froze, and the cold metal lock of the bicycle was pressed against his Adam's apple. Come out. Duan Kasho stiffly opened the car door and walked out. Beauty, out of blows, friendship grows, ah. Sirong kicked the man in the stomach, sending him flying a meter away. The man sat on the ground, his face pale, and couldn't stand up for a long time. Sirong walked up to him in 2 steps, reached out, and pulled his hair back, revealing Duan Chijo's handsome and injured face. Out of blows, friendship grows, she smiled. At such a close distance, Duan Chijo could see Sirong's eyes clearly. He could even see the gradually thickening dark green in them. The pain twisted his expression, and his anger burned. However, her heart that was about to jump out of her chest did not seem to be as simple as being angry. Sirong looked at the young man, who seemed to be in his 20s, and his face was blank. He punched him. If I see you again, I'll cripple you. Duan Kasho, who was lying on the ground, shuddered when he heard the calm voice. He looked up and saw that the other party did not even look back. Then, he walked into his sports car. Sirong, who was in the car, said to Yushin, who was still outside, come in. Yushi hesitated for a second before walking into the passenger seat of the sports car. The sports car stepped on the accelerator and sped off. With this car, we'll be able to shorten the time we need to reach City H, Sirong said indifferently. Yexi was speechless. Seventh young master, are you all right? Seventh young master, you can't let anything happen. Seventh young master, if you can hear me, quickly reply. Duan Chijo was awoken by the faint sound of the headphones hanging around his neck. She put her earphones back in her ears. What are you screaming for? I'm fine. Seventh young master, you finally replied. What do you mean by fine? I just heard a voice. Cut the crap and drive a car to pick me up. That Zhang Jinyang kid is dying. Upon hearing this, he said, Seventh young master, don't do anything stupid. We're coming right now, please wait a moment. Duan Chijo pulled off his headphones again in disgust. His trembling fingers took out a cigarette box, and he put another cigarette in his mouth, but he still didn't smoke. She sat on the ground and stared at the end of the road with a blank expression. After 7 or 8 seconds, she wiped her face with her hand and said, damn it, it's really flavorful. The journey that would have taken more than half a day had ended in Sirong's overnight car. Sirong followed Yushi into a dirty alley. The door of a single-story house was wide open, and a young man in blue stood outside. Yushi. When the person saw Yushi running towards him, he immediately came up to him. You're finally back. Where's my mom and Lingling? Yexi grabbed Shu Wanjun's arm tightly with both hands. I saw Aunt Zhao and Lingling getting caught and getting into the car when I came back, Shu Wanjun said bitterly. I don't know where they are. Yushi's face was livid. He pulled his hand away from Shu Wanjun's hand. Sirong walked over and asked Shu Wanjun, do you remember the license plate number of their cars, or the general characteristics of the people? Which direction did their car go? Shu Wanjun had noticed Sirong a long time ago. When she heard his question, she became a little nervous and fell into deep thought. After 2 seconds, she said, I only remember the number 14 at the back of the car plate. They don't look like good people. The man who caught Ling Ling had a tattoo on his arm, an anchor. Their car left the alley and went to the road on the east. Sirong nodded. You guys wait here. He then turned around and Yushi followed him. You have a clue? I'll go with you. It's no use for you to follow me. Si Huang stopped in his tracks. His merciless blow made Yushin's face turn pale. Stay here. I'll call you when I need your help. I will try my best to bring Yuling and Auntie back safely. She didn't know if this had happened in the Yexi family in her previous life. If she hadn't brought Yexi to Yang City, at least there would have been a man in their family. She was responsible for this, and she would take responsibility. Yexi pursed her lips tightly and watched as Sirong left again. Her lips trembled and she said with difficulty, I'm counting on you. In any case, he could not say something like, if you encounter any difficulties, try to protect yourself, Yushin said. Sirong, as long as Ling Ling and my mother are fine, I'll leave my life in your hands. Sirong didn't reply and disappeared into the alley. Sirong's luxurious silver-gray sports car arrived at City H's nightless city. He alighted from the car and went to the night bar once again. Who are you? You dare to touch me? Ah, don't hit me, don't hit me, you're the Lord, you're the Lord. Si Huang's foot was on the man's Achilles' heel. Seeing that he had become well-behaved, he slowly asked, do you know Ying Jun? The gangster's eyes rolled. Sirong exerted force in his foot. Ah! A knocking sound came from the next room, F*CK. Don't make too much noise, can't you guys go get a room? The hooligan opened his mouth to ask for help, but he heard a devilish voice above him. You still have one last chance. The hooligan shivered and took out his phone with trembling hands. I know, Brother Ben's phone is inside. Sirong asked him to look for the number. After the call got through, he put it on speaker. Not long after, he heard Chu Jun's voice. Little chickie, what's the matter? The hooligan called Chick's lips trembled and he was about to shout when a sharp pain came from his head and he fell unconscious. Chickling. On the other end, Zhu Jun's voice immediately became cautious. Just as he was about to hang up, Sirong said, It's me. Do you still remember that you owe me your life? His words made Yan Jun, who was sitting in the private room, stand up abruptly, startling the people around him. He apologized calmly and walked out of the room. Sirong?